Here.
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia. Not here at the moment. Commissioner Flores.
Here.
Commissioner Carrascos. Here. Commissioner Sherrick.
Present.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia.
Here.
Thank you.
Chair, do you have your mic on? Is it not working? Oh, maybe there.
First speaker is Miss Carmen Gonzalez. Can you come to the microphone, please? Podium. Oh, there's two of them from the beginning.
Hola, buenas tardes. Quiero dar mi comentario, aunque sea para el número 2 de la agenda. ¿Ya? ¿Comenzamos?
I want to provide my comment for the point number 2 of the agenda. Can we get started?
Go ahead, make your
Sí,
comment.
adelante.
Yes, please.
Ok. Mi nombre es Macarmen González.
My name is María del Carmen González. Carmen González.
Soy organizadora con la Colectiva Popular para la Justicia Ambiental.
I'm an organizer with the organization for environmental justice.
Tengo 20 años viviendo aquí en la comunidad de San Bernardino.
For 20 years, I've been living in the community of San Bernardino.
A lo largo de estos 20 años hemos luchado y mirado cómo la salud de la comunidad se ha ido deteriorando poco a poco.
Through these 20 years, we have seen and we have fought and seen how the health of the community has been deteriorated through these years, slowly.
Hay un nuevo paradero de camiones que quieren tener, lo cual yo estoy totalmente en oposición a que tengan ese nuevo paradero de camiones.
There is this new stop for trucks that is coming, and I'm in opposition for that stop for trucks.
El área del oeste de San Bernardino es una de las áreas más contaminadas que tenemos en esta ciudad, pues, entre comillas, industrial.
The west area of San Bernardino is one of the most contaminated areas in this, we can call it industrial city.
Nosotros como organización tenemos 20 familias que las hemos apoyado con filtros purificadores del aire, pero esto creo que no es suficiente y esto es como un curita nada más a la herida.
We 20 families, we have assisted with filters for air, but it's not enough. This is like just using a Band-Aid on a wound.
Nosotros hemos hecho estudios en el área y es, por ende, digo que es una de las áreas más contaminadas que tenemos aquí en la ciudad de San Bernardino.
We have done studies, and because of that, we can say, for that reason, we can say this area is one of the most contaminated in San Bernardino.
He visto cómo se ha seguido aumentando la tasa de asma, cáncer, enfermedades cardiovasculares y alergias. También he mirado que en el mes de febrero yo he perdido a mi comunidad, como 4 miembros de mi comunidad, únicamente por cáncer de pulmón.
I have also seen the rate of diseases like asthma going up, cancer, cardiovascular diseases, allergies, and I have to mention that I have lost 4 members of my community due to lung cancer.
Por ende, estoy en total oposición a que sigan industrializando y a este paradero de camiones.
Because of that reason, I'm opposing to this, to the fact of that the city keeps getting polluted, and also to this stop for trucks. I oppose.
Muchas gracias por escucharnos.
Thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you. The next speaker on item number 2 is Sandra Salazar.
But something happened, and there's always accidents there. You have police going by there, and you know what? The police would know what kind of accidents are there, because there's always accidents. And then now the school's out, you have the children running around. You can't have that. You can't have trucks with everybody running around like that. And where I live is in a mobile home park. There's 72 mobile homes, and it's all age. What are we supposed to do? There's accidents everywhere. There's police, ambulance, fire. You name it, we have it. So, like you said, justice for all. That's what we need. We need to think about, now we got to think about us. If nobody else is thinking about us, we're going to start thinking about us. So I appreciate it. There has been a lot of accidents on that street. Because where I live not too much kitty corner from the project, but my mobile home sits right where I can see everything on the street on Rancho and Rialto. And there is a lot of children living there, along with different ages of, you got seniors with disabilities. You have everything in that park. So I hope you guys consider, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to sit there and watch you guys build the trucks and have more accidents? As it is, there is a lot of trucks down that street, Rialto, along with the railroads. So that's what I got. I don't know what more to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next person is Jim Montez.
Good evening. My name is Jem Montez, and I'm with the People's Collective for Environmental Justice. And I'm here to ask you tonight to maintain the denial of the permit in an effort to support, public health of the community. I also operate and do a program called The Air I Breathe, and where it shows the high exposure levels to pollution levels that impact children, not only for asthma and eczema, but it also is ADHD. It's low birth weight. It's all kinds of things. And bringing this truck stop there is only going to increase diesel particulate matter. I mean, this pollution stays in your body forever, forever. And these people that are living in the mobile homes in the areas around there, a lot of them do not have the type of income that would be necessary for them to relocate. And I think that the idea that, well, at least you have a place to live, that's not good enough for the community. Not at all. It's laughable that they say that they want to be good neighbors when there's only a few items that they really want to compromise. Oh yeah, here's our lights. We'll adjust our lights, or maybe we'll pick a different kind of plant. Nobody's talking about what the air is going to be like. Are you going to get filtration for people? Are you going to get dual pane windows? Are you going to pay for their health care? No, that's not what I call a good neighbor. And 7 to 7, they're going to be mindful. Please tell me how you're going to enforce mindful. That's weak. Anyway, I'm asking you to, again, uphold the denial and come up with creative solutions to uplift this community and to not put all your eggs in one basket and just depend on the logistics system just like we did with the Air Force Base. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christian Flores.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Christian Flores, community organizer with Inland Congregations United for Change. Just here to echo a lot of the concerns that have been lifted by community members from the mobile home parks over the course of the last 3 months in regards to this project, both in regards to the compounding effects of traffic and noise pollution, air pollution and noise pollution, which are experienced by the folks living within close proximity to the proposed project, as well as there already being existing projects that impact those areas of the livelihoods and quality of life of the residents there. The infrastructure of those streets is just a one lane on each side, so that's definitely going to cause traffic issues, at least during the operating hours when students are being picked up and dropped off from school. But as folks have lifted, that's a hazardous zone in terms of the amount of accidents that are frequent to that area. Yeah, just really just trying to solidify the fact that the proposed uses for this area and the outdated zoning around how both the industrial and the residential bordering of these two areas creates so much friction for something that community members themselves don't want to see. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jim Gore. It looks like a Gore. It lives on Highland Avenue. Oh, there you go.
Good evening. My name's Jim Gore. I'm here for item number 3, only if there's questions from the Planning Commission.
The next speaker is Adam Gorency for item number 3.
Chair, if there's any
sorry.
public comments for
Yeah.
items 3 or 4, which are the public
Yeah,
hearing
didn't see.
items, we should
Okay.
wait till we get to those.
Yeah.
Any of the other items can be talked about now for public comment.
Consent calendar. Next item is the consent calendar. Consent items are routine in nature and may be enacted in one motion.
Chair
All-
Armstead, I think there was one more for not on the agenda. It should have been Luis Ojeda.
Oh, not agenda, that one. Okay. Just two. I have a Luis Ojeda.
Thank you, ma'am. Where's the time? All right. Can we start with, because I wanted to see my time also. I used to have it somewhere there. Three minutes? Okay, start. Hello, my name is Luis Ojeda, president and founder of We Are the Change. Well, I didn't know about that they were supposed to have an item for approval of the trucking yard. And you know the trucks and trucking yards and warehouses are very close to my heart because I used to own a trucking company for 30 years. And the ladies, they made some public comments, well-intentioned, but they're misguided, you know. This so-called environmental justice is laughable because the only thing that they do is they mislead the public. And I tell you because the state of California, to CARBs, put me out of business, okay? For these people, it says that trucks pollute. Well, I'm gonna tell you something. You guys are talking about 1980s diesel engines. The trucks nowadays, they don't pollute as much as they used to. As a matter of fact, maybe they pollute the same or less than a car, okay? If you guys don't believe me, I can give you guys a tour to one of my friends' trucking yards, and I can show you. Another thing that I see, you know, all these people, I know them from different places, different council meetings and planning commission meetings. And I wanted to know if Mr. Flores is gonna recuse himself because his brother, he's a, you know, he's an environmentalist. They always make noise everywhere. And I don't think that it's right to have a brother. And some of you guys over here, I know that you guys call your friends from the environmental justice, you know, community, which is your right, okay? And it's my right also to support them. And you guys need to wake up to reality, okay? And you guys need to take advantage, okay, of what we have. And what we have is lemons. So let's make lemonades. What do I mean by that? This is a city that is guided towards logistics. We have a train depot, we have the airport. So instead of complaining, why don't we take advantage of it, okay? I know that not every project is a good project, but you guys are against everything. So I'm so glad that some of you guys are gonna be gone after December because you guys are what is holding back this city. So please, and I know that you didn't see my name. It was, you know, an accident. It happens sometimes. So, but some of you guys there are the problem. And we need to get people that is going to bring the solution. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is George, just says George L. Georgia.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. This is my first time here. I came here specifically because I saw that you're trying to remove the chair, which is kind of strange to me, but I do want to speak on the warehouses and part to what this gentleman just spoke of and these people here. We don't need any more warehouses. It does pollute our air, and when I moved here, it was the first thing everyone told me is that the air here is filthy dirty. We don't need to add to it. They're not creating that many jobs. As a matter of fact, the last warehouse that was approved by council created 22 jobs for a 98 square foot facility with 20 bays. Not only does it create pollution, but it's loud, they're dangerous, and they're destroying our streets. So we have to move forward in this city as a community, not an industrial wasteland, because that's what I see. When I drive past here, I see nothing but big, huge buildings, and it's ugly. The next thing, like I said, the smog, the pollution, the trucks, the congestion, the potholes, which we are constantly complaining about. You know, these trucks are destroying our roads. Look at the roads that they travel. Are they fixing them? No, we are. The taxpayers, the taxpayer funding, the taxpayers are working hard to make this city better, and it's not creating enough jobs. It's just destroying this city. Last, again, I don't know what the reason is why you want to remove the chair. I don't care. It doesn't seem professional or right. It was an elected position. Why you want to re-elect someone, remove someone, and re-elect someone just doesn't sit right with me. I have a problem with it. So, you know, it was done appropriately, I'm sure. It was voted in, and just because someone came in late does not garner reason to restart the process. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Now we move on to consent calendar. Okay, next item is the consent agenda. Consent items are routine in nature and may be enacted in one motion. All public and non-public hearings will be open at one time. Any item may be discussed separately upon request of a member of the Planning Commission or a member of the public. Does staff have any updates to the consent calendar?
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, I'm going to have on item number 2, our Associate Planner, Chantel, to give a brief presentation on item number 2, because this was an item we brought to you at the last Planning Commission meeting with approval, and the Planning Commission, the vote did not pass. Planning Commission recommended denial. Now we're bringing you the ratification of that denial, and Chantel is going to go into a brief analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I will read off the findings that have changed. Previously, it was brought forth as an approval at the June 11th meeting. The Commission voted to deny the project. We're here to ratify that denial. So there were findings based off of the comments that were provided that did change. So I'm just going to read those off just to confirm that they meet the comments that they meet your recommendations. So the first one was finding number 2. The proposed development is consistent with the general plan. That has changed to the development and establishment of an industrial use of this caliber abutting single-family homes will not ensure compatibility between the land uses. The addition of the truck and trailer parking facility will add to the number of truck activities within the area, which will not minimize the impacts of the industrial uses have on the surrounding residential developments. Therefore, the proposed project does not comply with the goals and policies of the general plan. The next finding that was changed was finding number 3, which was the proposed development will be harmonious and compatible with the existing future development. That was changed to the intensity of the proposed use will not be compatible with the abutting single-family homes. Therefore, the development and establishment of the proposed truck and trailer parking will neither be harmonious nor compatible with the existing future development in general area. So those were the findings that were changed. I just want to make sure that this captures your comments from the last June 11th meeting, and if you guys are okay with these findings.
Thank you. We've already heard the speakers on this item, item number 2. So we are ready for the
Chair, you may want to open it up to your colleague commissioners to see if they do agree or if they have any additional comments that they want to be incorporated into the findings.
Okay. Do any of the other commissioners have any comments on this agenda item or concerns?
I'm ready to make a motion to move consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a
Call for
motion, we have a we have a motion and we have a second. We're ready to vote? Okay, all in favor? No, go ahead.
Chair Armstead,
Favor, yes.
Vice Chair Quill. Yes. Commissioner Daly,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Flores.
I'll abstain since I was absent last month.
Okay. Commissioner Carrasco? Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
So this is to approve item number 2?
It's for consent, so the approval of draft minutes and number 2.
Yes.
Vote passes 7 yeses, 2 abstain.
Now we move forward to the public hearing items. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from staff, and then the public hearing will be opened. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak. Next, members of the public will be allowed to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and fill a request speaker's form. The forms are located at the table near the rear. When your name is called, come forward and speak your name into the microphone. Say and spell your name for the taped record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. The public hearing will then be closed, and Planning Commission will begin deliberations and make a decision. I have 2 speakers for item number 3.
Madam Chair, there needs to be a staff presentation of the item, and then we can follow through with Planning Commission
Okay.
questions and then public comments thereafter.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Item number 3, I do want to add that there was a minor typo within the agenda item. On the staff report, it said item number 4, but this was actually item number 2, so 3. So I want to make that correction. This is, item number 3 is a specific plan amendment 23-02 and conditional use permit revision 23-11, also, and a reclamation plan. The proposed project is to amend conditional use permit 91-31, a reclamation plan, and the Calmat Cajon Creek specific plans design guidelines and governing mining depths and areas, and allow the consolidation of the cities and counties' reclamation plans to allow the continuation of aggregate sand and gravel mining operation. The project site is located southwest of Cajon Boulevard between Institution Road to the north and Devil's Creek Diversion Channel to the south within the specific plan Calmat Cajon Creek Industrial Extractive and Industrial Light Zone designations. Here we have a quick index map of the existing site in terms of where it's placed within the state of California as well within the city's jurisdiction. The general project, it's within the vicinity of the Valley region. Portions of the project are located within the city's boundaries, and portions are located within the county, the Muscoy community area. The project is located between, as I mentioned, Cajon Boulevard to the northeast and Cajon Creek Wash to the northwest, and it's bordered by Devil's Creek Diversion Channel to the south and Institution Road to the north. Here we have the aerial map of the existing site. Currently, right now, Vulcan operates 2 separate aggregate sand and gravel operations. They're located separately between the city of San Bernardino and the county of San Bernardino. This area M, area L, and area N are located within the city of San Bernardino's jurisdiction. Area Q is located within the county of San Bernardino. We also have area K, and that's also within the city of San Bernardino's jurisdiction. Here we have the location zoning map of the city's jurisdiction. As noted here in the kind of grayish scanned area, this is located within the Calmat Cajon specific plan within the industrial light and industrial extractive zone designations. Immediately right here, this is all area Q, which is part of the county's jurisdiction. And they did do a amendment to rezone that as industrial extractive within their zone jurisdiction. So the project background, Cajon Creek within the city of San Bernardino was approved in 1993. As part of the approval, it was the Calmat Cajon specific plan approval, as well as the conditional use permit to allow for the mining activity, which included also the reclamation plan in accordance with the Surface Mining and Reclamation Act. It included areas K, L, and M and N. Area K was to serve as a buffer development for the existing mining, for the proposed mining operation. The acreage is 334.5 acres, and it was approved to allow a mining depth of 120 feet below ground surface. Area Q, which is in the county of San Bernardino, was approved in 2020. It contains approximately 196 acres, and it approved a mining depth of 120 feet below ground surface. The project life for Area Q at the time of approval was 30 years, and currently right now it's still pending commencing of the mining activity. In terms of the project analysis, the project objectives at this time is to amend the Calmat Cajon Creek specific plan, which would include mining in Area K to a depth of 240 feet below ground surface, mining in areas L and M, which will increase the mining depth from the permissible depth of 120 feet below ground surface to 240 feet below ground surface, and mining in the northern portion of Area N to 120 feet below ground surface. Revise the previously approved conditional use permit 91-31 for areas L and M and N, reflecting the deepened mining operations at the site, and also update the reclamation plan to reflect the consolidation of areas K, L, and Q in one mining area pit, and M and N in another, creating two consolidated mining pits for the efficient mineral resource recovery of sand and gravel. The extent of life for the mine activity is 70 years to an approximate year of 2093. Currently, right now, the groundwater surface within the area is above, in excess of 263 feet, so the mining depth of 240 is acceptable. A little bit additional background in terms of the project. There was a memorandum of understanding that was signed by the mayor and city council of the city of San Bernardino, as well as the board for the county of San Bernardino, in where it transferred lead agency roles from the city to the county. It transferred the roles as it relates to CEQA. It also transferred roles as it relates to the Surface Mining and Reclamation Act, SMARA, in where the principal responsibility for review and approval of the reclamation plan, financial assurances, mine inspections, and surface and mining reclamation enforcement will be led by the county of San Bernardino. As part of the CEQA environmental evaluation, there were previously certified environmental impact reports. For the city, there was the 1993 Cajon Creek Quarry Environmental Impact Report, and for the county, there was the 2020 Area Q Quarry Environmental Impact Report. As part of the analysis showed that the project does not involve any new significant environmental impacts or more severe environmental impacts that were previously not analyzed or mitigated through the previous environmental impact reports. Based on that, we were able to process an addendum to both environmental impact reports, and it was prepared and adopted by the County of San Bernardino as the lead agency. As it relates to the city, we are the responsible agency and will continue to be the permitting authority for any activity within the city's jurisdiction that includes land use as well. Here we have the proposed site plan, as I mentioned previously, as it relates to the combination of how the mining operations will be combined. Here we'll combine area M and N into one pit that will be mined to 240 depth. And here we will have mining areas K, L and Q that will be combined. The proposed project is divided by the railroad tracks that run north and south. There will be some setbacks from the railroad tracks, the diversion channel and Cajon Wash that will be 50 feet, along with a 30-foot from Cajon Boulevard and 100 feet from the adjacent industrial parcels to the north. Additionally, the project will avoid disturbance of the Cajon Creek, the channel that runs here, Devil's Channel, via a 50-foot setback and a 10-foot earth berm to protect the adjacent community from any visual impacts as well as noise. And then to add, there will be some additional 2-to-1 slopes that will create additional buffering to the adjacent uses, so you will not be able to see any kind of the activity that's being that's occurring within the mining area. Currently, right now, this is the existing aerial view of the existing site. Here we have the mining areas that have already been mined within the city of San Bernardino. And then this is the area within the county of San Bernardino that will be continued to mine. To the north, we have Institution Road. To the west, we have some undeveloped land as well as the Cajon Wash Lighter Creek. To the south here, this is where we have the Muscoy and then the residential community that, again, there is an existing channel that is existing, and then there will be an additional 50-foot setback plus a 10-foot buffer. And then to the east, we have some industrial activity and institutions. This is the existing site. As you look into on Cajon Boulevard, there is an existing buffer around Area K. And so the mining activity is more deepened and you're not able to actually see it. Initially for Area Q, you will see some movement in terms of mining, but once they get to a deep, then you won't be able to see anything. It'll be all protected through buffers. This is Area L facing northwest. This is to just kind of give you an idea of how the mining activity will look. As you can see, you can't really tell anything from the outside. There is going to be a lot of landscaping buffering. And this is Area M facing southeast. That's how it's currently looked at the site. And with that, the recommendation by staff is that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2024-024, forwarding a recommendation to the Mayor and City Council to consider the addendum to the certified final environmental impact reports for the specific plan amendment 23-02 and conditional use permit revision 23-11 in accordance with section 15164 of the Public Resources Code and direct the Planning Commission Secretary to prepare and file with the Clerk of the County of San Bernardino a notice of determination as approved under Public Resources Code Section 21152C and the California Code of Regulations Title 14, Section 15094, and approve specific plan amendment 23-02 and conditional use permit revision 23-11 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. And I do want to add, we did receive one inquiry from a citizen that lives within the Muscoy community, just to get a little bit more information as to the project. They were aware of the mining activity. That was information that was released to them. So I just provided additional clarity. Aside from that, they did not want to pursue any written comment. And if you have any questions, the applicant is here.
Anyone have any questions?
How will your mining operation, in fact, affect the residential areas in the and and the proximity?
It won't really have any effect on the proximity to the community. There are gonna be additional, setbacks that are set for that. So, along the channel, the wash, you have an existing channel here, that's gonna, stay. That's not gonna be removed. In addition to that, there's gonna be a 50-foot, setback to the mining activity, plus an additional 10-foot buffer. So that's a total of 16 feet plus whatever deep the channel is. So there's not gonna be any, there might be some initial ones when they're doing the removal of the ground surface, but once you get to a certain depth, you're no longer gonna see it. Thank you. You're no longer gonna be able to see it. Additionally, they do have to get permits through the Air Quality Management Agency, in where if there's winds, because we know that area has high winds, if there's winds beyond 25 miles per hour, they shut operations, they can't operate. So that's gonna at least buffer some of that additional. And then let me add something additional. There is also going to be some additional 24-hour noise monitoring. That's going to be located, there's going to be noise monitoring here in this area of the channel. There's going to be another point in this area. There's going to be another point here, and then another point in right here, and then a fifth one here. So that's going to monitor the noise of that area if it does go beyond a certain excess. So that's going to end up protecting the adjacent communities.
Go ahead.
I have a question. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Is there, could I speak to the applicant?
Yes.
Chair, if you'd like to open the public hearing then.
Okay, staff is complete. We will now open for public comments, and this is Jim Gore.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jim Gore with Vulcan Materials Company. I'm here to answer questions that you might have.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. I do have a question. Are you doing any rock or concrete grinding out there?
No, we're actually permitted to do that. If you were to look at Area N, we actually have a hot mix asphalt plant there now. We do take not recycled, but wrap material, which is ground up from the streets, and put it back into the hot mix plant.
Okay. Are you transporting concrete to the site to be ground?
Not at this time. It is approved to do that in areas M and L from the previous EIR.
Okay, because I know you're aware of the problem we have out there with the pile of concrete.
Oh, yeah.
And the neighbors were quite concerned about grinding out in that area, so that's still a hotbed. Anyways, what provisions do you have to protect that? You're right there in the channel, and we've had quite a bit of rain this last couple seasons. Do you have a levee or a small dam to keep those holes from filling with water?
Well, if you were to look at Area M, you've got Muscoid groin number 2 that extends almost the full length of that. And part of what we're looking at doing now is to extend, can I your pointer? To extend that into Area M. If you look right here, this is Muscoid groin number 2. And then this area right through here, we're going to extend the riprap berm across till it meets the Area N. We've done a hydrology study, and that addition will prevent any flooding into the pits.
Thank you. I was quite surprised to hear the water table is so low there. Yeah.
We spent a lot of time and effort and money to determine that.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to clarify is that the berm that's adjacent to the concrete channel, it's actually a 10-foot high berm. It's got a a drivable area on the top, and then the 2-to-1 side slopes on that, and then the buffer starts past that. So if you were to look at it from the southern portion, the mining activity won't take place for about 60 feet. So it's, even though it's only a 10-foot high buffer, it sits at an angle like this with a flat top. And if you were to look on the south side of the concrete line channel, it's got a berm that was built by the county.
Oh.
Just an earthen berm previously that protects it from the residents from Musqueam.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answers. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a?
I have one question, Chair. I have one question. Thank you, Ms. Mora, for your presentation. When the wind, you mentioned when the wind is more than 25 miles an hour, operation will stop. Is there any measures to take place, a water truck to stop any dust from flying, or what operation stops and what happens after that?
Yeah, we run a water truck out there right now, like 12 hours a day, and it's a 10,000 gallon water truck that runs back and forth. The South Coast has a provision, Rule 403, that anytime the wind exceeds 25 miles an hour, you shut operations down. And so we're also required to control the dust that's out there. We've been out there since the early 90s, and in that time frame, we've never gotten an NOV from South Coast. They've come out and done inspections, and we've always had good results.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. For staff, help me understand the kind of the dynamic here between the city and the county, the MOU that turns over lead agency responsibility from the city to the county, and what is going to be the ongoing responsibilities of the county after this, if the city is kind of leading, handing over lead agency responsibilities. Help me understand that, please.
Yeah, so essentially it was a collaboration between the county and the city in direction with the state of California, the Division of Mine, the Division of Mine and Reclamation, thank you. They kind of indicate, because currently right now, the county has its own mine activity, own mine number, and then we have our own mine number. So the Surface Mining and Reclamation allows for abutting jurisdictional activities to consolidate into one mine activity if there is no physical buffer to be able to prevent that. So in direction essentially from them, we decided to work together. The reason for establishing the memorandum of understanding in where the county took over lead agency responsibilities as it relates to the CEQA document, as it relates to the Surface Mining and Reclamation, and the additional annual inspections was more because they have more mining activities. They have an actual division and department that can take on those roles and responsibilities. And essentially, we will still maintain land use authority. So any type of permit, whether we need to amend anything more within our jurisdiction will come to us. We will still maintain our authority in terms of the end use. Currently, right now, the proposal for the end use would be to have it as open space for that area. So there is currently nothing as it relates to having an industrial use at this time. So essentially, once the in 90 years from now, 2093, once the reclamation is over, then at that point the county will, the owner will do the reclamation of the site, bring it up to, the plan, and then it'll just stay out there as open space until the city decides to do anything else with the property if they so choose so. And then I can probably have the applicant provide a little bit more additional insight into that as well.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. Adam Guernsey on behalf of Vulcan Materials Company. I think that was a really nice job, Elizabeth. I'll just add that state law when you have a single mining operation that spans 2 jurisdictions, they require just a single lead agency under the Surface Mining and Reclamation Act. And it was decided that the county, since it has, I think, over 90 permitted mines within its jurisdiction, it would take over those functions. Those include annual inspections for SMARA compliance, making sure that reclamation is completed in accordance with the reclamation plan, things like that. But again, as Elizabeth said, the city retains its full police power authority to determine what's going on site, make sure there's no nuisances, things like that. So,
Got it. Thank you. Thank you both. Can you highlight on this map Area K? That little sliver right there that I'm looking at? Okay. And I thought that I saw on a previous slide when maybe this was originally approved back in the 90s, that Area K was intended to be a buffer development. It was intended to be not developed to serve as a buffer between the opposing use on one side and then the mining operations on the other. Did I see that right?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So essentially, because even though it is a large acreage, it isn't big enough or deep enough to allow for industrial, like the big industrial types of developments. So at this time, since it is it has high mineral resources, then it just was more convenient to incorporate it as part of the mining activity. It still has that initial buffer and it will maintain that buffer, but it now will be allow for the mining activity to happen just because it's too narrow for an industrial type of development.
Sure. So thank you. So I guess then my only question on that side then is, in looking at the CEQA analysis from 93 and then subsequently in 2020, was the additional development of Area K further analyzed?
So as part of the, yes, it was, and there was no additional impacts that it was going to generate, since essentially the mining activity is already occurring at the site.
It's right there.
At that location, correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Oh.
I just want to clarify one point so it's clear, though. Area K, as currently approved from the 93 approvals, was for kind of this medium intensity industrial development. So it was intended to be developed. But actually in the 93 EIR, it noted that even if it wasn't developed, it could, be used in the mining operation with like a berm, which is like currently there right now. So just for that clarification. It wasn't going to be undeveloped forever. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have a few questions. If I'm understanding the environmental documents correctly, it looks like there are no new air quality mitigation measures from the original one in the 90s. I'm curious to hear how that determination was made, given how much has changed at the air quality district since the 90s.
Actually, we did the analysis when we did the preparation for the addendum, there was the analysis for the 1993, but then there was also the analysis that was also done for Area Q as part of the 2020 Environmental Impact Report. So essentially, the addendum consolidated both environmental impact reports and took in both in terms of the preparation for the addendum. The site has already been analyzed for air quality for those areas and those regions. They're not increasing the area that was already analyzed for air quality, so therefore the impact isn't changing. Additionally, the road structures are already existing. The equipment and the use of the type and the number of equipment that will be used isn't changing. It's still going to continue to maintain, and I can potentially ask Adam to add a little bit more to that as well.
Yeah, happy to, Elizabeth. The question is is one relating to CEQA and baseline. And because it's an existing operation, and as Elizabeth mentioned, there's going to be no changes in throughput, no changes in operations, merely a continuation of what's going on site. The air quality analysis determined that there were no increases in emissions, particulate matter, et cetera. So if there's no impact, CEQA doesn't require new mitigation measures. But to Elizabeth's point, the 1993 mitigation measures continue to apply, and the county's mitigation measures from 2020, much more modern, are going to be applied to the entirety of the site, including the city portions. So those will continue, but there were no new impacts and therefore no new mitigation measures.
Got it. So if I understood that correctly, because you're combining under one reclamation plan, once you start construction on area Q, it will kick in the mitigation measures around their dust control plan and other AQMD required mitigation measures from the 92 mitigation monitoring plan.
No, I believe that the resolution incorporates both sets of mitigation measures for immediate applicability to ongoing operations within the city's jurisdiction, as well as when they ultimately move into the county's jurisdiction.
And that would be, that's attached as an exhibit B to the resolution, and where we're incorporating both mitigation measures. So although, so because now we're consolidating and it's essentially one complete mining activity, we will be incorporating, and the county will be incorporating. Sorry, I keep on doing that. Apologies. We will continue to incorporate the mitigation measures, not only from the 1993, but also the more current language from the 2020 and the mitigation measures from 2020.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other comments or concerns? Okay, on this, we do have one more public comment. Adam, oh, that's you. Okay.
That's me. The only thing I'll mention is I just want to thank Elizabeth. We've been working on this project for almost 4 years now, interrupted by COVID, and she's been fantastic to work with. So I just wanted to thank staff for their help on this project.
Yeah, I just echo that. You know, it's been a pleasure working with the city, working with staff. You know, it's been some trying times, like I said, with COVID and stuff. And so it's nice to get to the end of the journey.
Okay, we will now close a public hearing. And we'll take it back to Planning Commission for a motion, discussion and a motion. I need a,
I'll move to approve as recommended by staff.
I'll second.
okay. Go ahead.
Chair Armstead,
Yes.
Vice Chair Quill,
Yes.
Commissioner Daly,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores,
Yes.
Commissioner Carrascos,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia.
Yes.
Vote passes unanimously.
Item number 4. Item number 4, staff presentation.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners and Chair. Item number 4 tonight is subdivision 22-11 for tentative parcel map 20786 and conditional use permit 22-05. The proposed project is a subdivision and operation of a tow impound yard for Wilson Tow. It's located at 2414 East 3rd Street on 3.45 acres within the industrial light zone. Here we have the location. Here we have the aerial map. We can see the airport across the street here. We have the old Wilson's Tow site that's operating currently here. They will be moving about 4 parcels down to this location. So Wilson Tow has been in business in the city since the 1950s, and the current 2130 East 3rd Street, which I just showed, location since the 90s. They've been a good community business neighbor, but due to locational restrictions, they need to expand their operations, and is proposing to move their operations down the street to 2414 East 3rd Street. The project consists of the subdivision of the 3.45 acre parcel into two parcels, one parcel at 2.45 acres and the second parcel at 1 acre, along with the conditional use permit 22-05, which is a request to develop, establish, and operate a towing facility with an impound yard. Operations would take place 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Security is provided via guards and perimeter control cameras. Customers would come to the office window where they pay to retrieve their car, and an employee of Wilson Tow would retrieve the car and bring it out to the customer. No customer would be allowed past the point of entry gate, and customer pickup is from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and in some cases, after-hours pickup is arranged. Wilson Tow is contracted and has worked with the City of San Bernardino Police Department since the 1990s. Wilson Tow has been asked by PD to expand their yarded services to accommodate larger vehicles that will be towed, such as trucks and trailers that have set up an unpermitted truck parking facility within the city limits, or RV vehicles that are utilized for more than recreation. Access will take place off the East Lancashire Avenue via 2 drive approaches. Parking meets the requirements per development code. The Traffic Engineering Division analyzed potential traffic scenarios that may impact existing traffic conditions. The results of the study scenarios indicated that the proposed project will not result in any intensity of impact due to the like uses around. Landscaping will be replaced and repaired where needed and as necessary. The development code requires a minimum of 15% of surface parking areas to be landscaped. This proposal would require approximately 855 square feet, and the proposal has allotted about 5,900 square feet, which exceeds the code standards. The project is consistent with the general plan. In fact, it's consistent with general planned use policy 2.2.1, in that allowing the relocation and expansion, the project site will be revitalized and modernized. Economic Development Element Policy 4.2.1 requires that the city maintain a strong intergovernmental relationship with public sector agencies to be up to date with their needs. As the city of San Bernardino grows, need for impounding vehicles due to vehicle code violations and unpermitted truck parking is also growing. By expanding the existing towing and impound yard, the need for more impound lot coverage would not be completely met, but would be well accommodated. Here we have the proposed site at 2414 East 3rd Street. This is the frontage here. This would be a picture of the impound yard. I really couldn't get a good picture in there. This would be the proposed admin office looking east from Lancashire. It was a single-family residence. It is going to be converted into the office for the tow business for their admin staff. This is the proposed vehicle pickup office looking east from Lancashire. This is where a customer would come to pick up their vehicle and pay their fines and fees. This is the proposed PD evidence storage looking north from East 3rd Street. They're required to have enclosed storage for evidence, impounds that were involved in different types of scenarios. So this is their current tow business at 2310 East 3rd Street. As you can see, it's a clean, well-maintained site. I was just out there taking pictures yesterday. So this is their current site here. You could see the outline, and you could see they keep it very orderly. The applicant put a lot of money into drainage, underground basins to make this all work, so there's no flooding, there's all vector control. All the businesses in the frontage here have been well maintained and well kept. He has no issues. And then this picture here, you can see the lighter gray versus the darker gray. Those are the street improvements that he put in. He was only asked to do half his street. He ended up doing most of the width of the street and putting in extra money, which is a solid investment in our city. Here we have the site plan. So everything's pretty much existing because the building's already there. They're just utilizing and tenant improving what needs to be done. So the setbacks are basically existing. So from the from the proposed office that would be converted, there's 43 feet existing off Lankershim where only 10 is required per the Dev code. So they are subdividing. So if you see this darker line here, that's the subdivision. So this would be parcel 1 up here. This is parcel 2 down here with the multi-tenant auto facilities. That will remain. Between the new parcel line here and the building, there is a 10-foot setback, which is required. And from the new parcel line to the street frontage, there's actually 26 feet, which only 10 is required. Lot coverage is at 0.05%, where 50% is allowed. Traffic's approved of circulation, and parking meets all the standards that are needed. So here's a little, another picture of the subdivision, kind of breaks it down a little bit better. So we got the pickup window here, the office, here's the impound yard, the evidence storage, and although these are existing businesses, they're not a part of the impound business itself. So they will still operate, they will be beautified, updated, modernized, and still operate and serve the needs of the citizens. Here we have the landscape plan. It's going to be a repair and replace as needed. As I said, there's 855 square feet needed. The proposal has about 5,900 square feet, which exceeds our development code standards. So recommendation today is that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2024-025, finding the categorical exemption and approving subdivision 22-11, TPM 20786, and conditional use permit 22-05, based on the findings of fact, seek determination, and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. And the applicant is here to take questions, and I can answer anything that's needed.
Can the applicant come forward in case they have questions? I don't have any public comments.
Chair, would you like to open the public hearing?
Well, I'm sorry. I'd like to open this up for public hearing. And the applicant, please come forward.
Hi, my name is John Vaughn. I'm with Wilson Towing, and I've got Lucas here with Wilson Engineering. Yep.
I just have one question. Do you agree with the conditions of approval as written, or do you have any issues?
I agree with them as they're written.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments?
I just had a question. So are you relocating or are you expanding?
We're going to be expanding. So Wilson Towing's been in business since 1950. We've been servicing the San Bernardino Police Department since 1950. 2.5, 3 years ago, the City of San Bernardino Police Department came to us and indicated they needed to expand their commercial towing of these unpermitted vehicles. They're huge trailers and trucks that are parked throughout the city now. They're using it kind of as a parking lot. And so the commercial officers came to us and said, we have to buy heavy equipment. So we had to invest in the infrastructure, spent millions of dollars, in fact, doing that. And the problem is that the existing site at the time that we had it in 1990s just doesn't accommodate those vehicles. They're 53-foot trailers, tractors, storage, there's trailers and homeless trailers as well.
Yeah.
So they got to a point where they said, look, you're all going to have to get the equipment and get the infrastructure in place because this is what we're going to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other?
I just have a comment. I'd like to thank Wilson Towing for being part of our community for all those years. It's a pretty terrific thing. Not a lot of businesses in the community are lasting as long as you guys are. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
I have a quick comment and just flag I wanted to make known to the commission who may not have had a chance to read the letter you all provided to the city, but you had indicated that since the Amazon facility opened, it essentially prevented your business from operating more efficiently due to increased traffic at your main entrance. Is that correct?
There was considerably more traffic when Amazon moved in, yes.
And was that one of the main considering factors for you to expand and move that entrance?
No, we also operate, our facility on 3rd Street operates from 3rd to 5th Street. So we kind of adapted and we utilize the entrance and exit from the 5th Street location. But primarily the reason we're expanding is because commercial police needed us to be able to store all these trailers and trucks.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
This is for staff. What other businesses or other groups are surrounding this property?
So they're all like businesses. We have the airport to the south here. We have the Prior Towing Services here. There's a warehouse, a Highland warehouse exactly behind the proposed location. All this right here is auto repair, and then this is all the city of Highland. We own this little sliver right here, which is set up for residential medium. We don't know what's really taking place there, but as far as right now, this is all the same types of uses surrounding.
Anyone else have any comments? All right, we will now close the public hearing. And we will vote.
I'd like to make the motion. I'd like to make a motion the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2024-025, approving subdivision 22-11, and the conditional use permit 2205.
I second.
Chair Armstead?
Yes.
Vice Chair Quill?
Yes.
Commissioner Daly?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores?
Yes.
Commissioner Croscos? Yes. Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Vote passes unanimously.
Thank you, commissioners.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, at this point, I think I want to recommend that we take a short break before we get into the non-Planning Commission, non-public hearing items, so that you could stretch your legs and get a drink of water before we get into jeopardy. Okay, thank you.
If you're ready, Chair, you can call the meeting back to order.
Okay, okay.
Oh, are we missing one? Sorry, I missed that. Yeah, we need the Jeopardy music. There you go.
Now we'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Chair. So I have devised a Jeopardy game to kind of go over some basic legal topics that I think all of you should know. Gabriel and I were chatting, and we thought this would be a good opportunity since we have a few new commissioners on the commission to kind of go through this. And it's exactly what you would expect among Jeopardy, except you're not going to win anything. That's the unfortunate thing. So the only thing that you're going to win is bragging rights. Okay, but that doesn't count for nothing. And so I always like to start these presentations the same way. I ask everyone to look to your right and to look to your left, because these are not your colleagues, these are your competition. And so you're playing to win. And I want you to have that mindset as we're going through this game. You're playing to win, okay? And so there's 5 categories: public meetings, public participation, public integrity, planning, and miscellaneous. And so let's just kick it right off and raise your hand if you would like to start us off. I need a volunteer. Raise your hand if you want to start with the board. Okay, Orlando, I saw you first. What would you like? Okay, planning for 100. This specifies, and raise your hand if you know the answer, and then Gabriel will help me keep track who raised their hand first, okay? This specifies what kind of development should go where and details the standards that developments need to adhere by, including density, heights, and parking. I think, Jesus, I saw you first.
What is the development code?
Okay, I'm going to give it to you. Let's see the answer. Just click anywhere again. What is zoning? Basically the same thing, right? Because our zoning code is the development code. So you're going to get 100 points, and I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce my helper. Irene, can you please stand? This is Irene Lee. She's one of the summer law clerks for the city attorney's office, and I asked her to come here tonight to observe all of you. She's very interested in municipal law, so I thought this would be a great opportunity for her to attend this meeting. She attended Cal Poly Pomona as an undergraduate and majored in business administration, and right now she's doing her law degree at UC Irvine School of Law, and next year is her 3rd and last year. So if you could give her a warm welcome. Great. And you can sit down now, Irene. And so please mark down Commissioner Flores for 100 points. And since you got it right, you have the board.
Planning for 200.
Planning for 200?
Yes.
Okay, planning for 200. For general plan adoption or amendments, the state planning and zoning law requires that the Planning Commission provide this. Lisa?
What is a public hearing?
No.
No.
You're technically correct. They have to provide that, but it's not what I'm looking for. Commissioner Flores?
What are findings of fact?
No. Again, both of you are warm, but I'm looking for something specific. Okay, let's see the answer. What is a recommendation? Okay, so as an example, and specific plans and specific plan amendments are treated the same as a general plan or general plan amendment. So if either of those things come to you, you are providing a recommendation to the city council. Okay? All right.
So does Commissioner Flores lose 200
no,
points?
he doesn't. Luckily. But I need a volunteer again.
Good.
Okay, Lisa? What would you like?
I'll take public meetings for 100.
Okay, public meetings for 100. This law requires that all meetings shall be open and public unless authorized
Casey.
otherwise. Casey? What is the Brown Act? Correct.
Hey.
What is the Brown Act? Very good. You have the board. Public participation for 400.
For 400.
No, no, no,
Wow.
no.
4.
400. Okay. A governmental entity, such as a planning commission, is justified in limiting its meeting to discussion of specified agenda items as long as the restrictions are.
Casey?
Casey? No. Remember, that's in the question. It's saying you can limit the discussion to what's on the agenda items as long as the restrictions are what, Lisa?
Within the subject area?
No. You're technically correct, but I'm looking for something specific. Okay? All right, let's see the answer. What is non-discriminatory or non-biased? Okay, that's what I was looking for. Okay, let's go back to the main board. I need a volunteer. Okay.
Okay.
Ivan?
Ivan.
Public participation for 100. This item on the agenda provides the public the ability to address the Planning Commission on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Gabriel, who's
Ivan.
first? Okay, Ivan.
Ivan was first.
Correct. See the answer? What is public comment? Very good, for 100 points.
Good.
Very good. Okay, let's go back to the main board. You have the board, Ivan. Public integrity, 100. This form is required from, quote, filers when assuming office, annually thereafter, and
Lisa.
upon leaving office. Lisa?
Lisa.
What is Form 700?
Correct. Let's see the answer. What is Form 700? Very good. That was that 100 points?
100 points.
Okay, 100 points. And you have the board, Lisa.
Well, let's do public integrity for 200.
Public integrity, 200. Public officials are required to complete this training every 2 years.
Lisa was first.
What
Sorry. Sorry, Casey.
Ethics training? Assembly Bill 1234?
Very good. Okay, let's see it. What is AB 1234 ethics training? Very good. That was, 200 points.
200
points to
points.
Lisa.
All
You still
right.
have the board.
Let's do the same category for 300.
Okay. Public integrity, 300. When an official's property boundary is within this, sorry, that's a typo, radius of the property subject to a decision, the official may not participate unless there is clear and convincing evidence that the decision will not have any measurable impact on the official's property.
Lisa.
500 feet?
Correct. Let's see it. Suleyman, let's see the answer. Yes, what is 500 feet? Very good. That's 300 points.
300 points.
For Lisa. Okay, let's go back to the main board. Lisa, you have the board.
Same category for 4.
Okay, let's do this. Public integrity for 400. This government code section prohibits an officer, employee, or agency from participating in making government contracts in which the official or employee within the agency has a financial interest.
Casey?
No, you're warm. You're warm, but that's not the correct answer, and I'll explain after. Anybody? All right, let's see the answer. What is Government Code Section 1090? So, when we talk about conflicts of interest, there's 3 buckets. The first bucket is the one that you mentioned, conflicts of interest. That's under the Political Reform Act. And you're probably familiar with what's called the Fair Political Practices Commission, which requires you to fill out the Form 700, the FPPC, okay, because they're the administrative arm that the legislation created to enforce the Political Reform Act. But the Political Reform Act governs conflicts generally. Government Code Section 1090 deals with conflicts in contracts only. That's the difference. That's bucket number 2 in conflicts. Bucket number 3 is what's called the common law conflict of interest. The common law conflict of interest cares about the appearance of impropriety. So as an example, under the Political Reform Act, you do have a conflict of interest when, let's use a real hypothetical. Let's say that I'm speaking as you you are a planning commissioner, and there's someone that comes up before the commission to apply for a conditional use permit to expand their gas station to allow liquor. And they tell you that, or actually, in order to get where I want to go, it's not for liquor, but it's for the gas station. And they tell you that if they don't get the permission to expand the gas station, they're going to go out of business because they're struggling. And you know that you have a child that works at that business, okay? And the child is a minor. Let's say they're 17, and it's like a part-time summer job at the gas station, okay? The child lives with you, they're 17 years old. The Political Reform Act says that you have a conflict of interest because your decision is going to impact your child having a job if you approve the project, or putting them out of a job if you deny the project, okay? Now let's change the facts. Now let's say that they don't live with you, and let's say that they're 22 years old, okay? So they're a legal adult, they don't live with you, they don't depend on you for money or housing or food or anything, but otherwise all the other facts remain the same. The Political Reform Act says you do not have a conflict of interest. Even though your child, they are your child and they're an employee of the business, you do not have a conflict under the Political Reform Act. Now let's go back to bucket number 3, the common law conflict of interest. The common law cares about the appearance of impropriety. So under the common law conflict of interest, I couldn't tell you that you definitely do have a conflict or you definitely don't. But I can tell you that you might have a conflict under that third bucket, the common law. Because someone's going to say, well, they're still your kid. You're still going to care if they have a job or not. And so that's the difference, okay? So I don't think anyone got this correct, right?
No.
Okay, let's go back to the main board, and I need a volunteer. Casey. I'll take miscellaneous for 100. Okay. Common blank include limited hours of operation, road improvements, soundproofing, additional landscaping, and additional parking.
Orlando.
You said common area? No. Casey? Correct. What are conditions of approval? So, you know, this should be familiar. These projects that are coming before you, this is what we're talking about, right? When we talk about the gas station and they're applying for the liquor license, what do we talk about? We talk about the hours of operation, right? Road improvements. When we talk about a trucking project, we're talking about what is the impact to the road. Are they going to, you know, resurface the road because of that impact that they're going to have? Soundproofing, additional landscaping, and additional parking. These are the common things that we tend to talk about and impose as conditions of approval. Okay, that was 100 points for Casey. Let's go back to the main board. What would you like, Casey? Miscellaneous for 200. These types of decisions involve policy choices that apply to a broad class of landowners. Go ahead, Casey. Close, but not quite there. Okay, let's see the answer. These are legislative decisions. Legislative decisions are decisions like an ordinance, okay, or a general plan or a specific plan that have an equal effect on everybody, okay? It's different from, let's say something went to the DERC, and let's say that the DERC had the authority to approve or deny the project, and let's say they denied the project. The person who was denied has now appealed. Now it comes to you. You're the next level, Planning Commission. That would not be a legislative decision because you are looking at only one project. A legislative decision is looking at an ordinance that's going to update the zoning code or that's going to adopt or amend a general plan or a specific plan. and that has broad applicability. That's a legislative decision. Okay? All right, let's go back to the main board. And no one got that right, did they, Gabriel?
No.
Okay, I need a volunteer. Yes, sir. Larry?
Yeah, I'll try miscellaneous for 300.
Miscellaneous for 300. A strong personal animosity towards a project applicant or the receipt of information about a project may constitute a disqualifying source of bias when a planning commission is sitting in this capacity. No, you're in the right territory. I'll give you a little hint, though. We just talked about legislative decisions. This is the second type of decision that you guys make. This is the situation where I told you about the DERC project that they denied, and now it's come to you as the Planning Commission, so you're hearing an appeal. There's a certain term that we call that.
Jesus?
What are discretionary decisions?
No, no. Okay, let's see the answer. This is what's called in your quasi-judicial capacity. And that, and, okay? and so the reason that I have this here is because applicants have due process rights, okay? So the U.S. Constitution says the government cannot deprive life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And when someone has applied for an entitlement, a conditional use permit, a development permit, etc., a tentative tract map, the courts view that entitlement as a form of a property right, okay? And so due process, the rights that any person has under due process, basically two things. One, you have an opportunity to be heard. That's why we have to have a public hearing, so that the person can come and tell you why you should approve their project. That's one. The second thing is due process requires an unbiased decision maker. So this issue here is getting at the bias. And there's two aspects of it. One is more blatant. It's the personal animosity. So that's the situation where, let's say that there's a warehouse project for 1 million square feet, and you're opposed to the project. And you go on your Facebook, and you post 2 days before the public hearing, I can't wait to vote against this project. Tell me how you feel. Okay, that's your post. That is demonstrating that you're biased. Because before the public hearing happened, before you received the staff report, before you received the applicant's testimony, before you received public comment, before you heard the opinions of your other colleagues on the commission, you already made up your mind that you're going to vote no. And the reason that is important from a legal perspective is because if it turns out that at the public hearing the project is voted down, it's rejected, it's not approved, that applicant could potentially bring a claim against the city and later after that go to court and say, I want you to approve this decision because I was denied due process. I didn't have an unbiased decision maker. So that's the first part. The second part is receipt of information. That is getting at information or conversations that you have had with the applicant outside of the public hearing. That's what that's getting at. And you're not supposed to do that. You are supposed to make your decisions based on the information presented to you in the published agenda packet and during the public hearing itself. It's not a black and white rule, though. If it happens that you have had a conversation with an applicant or an appellant who's coming before you, you need to disclose that on the record at the very beginning of the public hearing. You need to say, you know what, I need to disclose that I actually spoke to the appellant, and then you need to disclose the substance of the conversation. This is what was told, or this is the information that was given to me, you know, and I'm giving it to all of you now. If it was a, you know, if it was a news article or whatever it was, you know, if they provide something to you in writing, share that and we can make copies. If it was a verbal conversation, share the substance. You have a question, Dolores? So if you do not disclose the substance of the conversation, then you would need to recuse yourself and not participate. But you can participate if you disclose all that information and those conversations that you had outside of the public hearing. Okay? Any other questions about that? Okay. Let's go back to the main board, and I need a volunteer. Yes, Dolores. Miscellaneous for 400. Commissioners running for office, this is elective office, must disqualify themselves from entitlement proceedings, such as land use permits, if they received campaign contributions of more than this amount.
Yvonne.
No, it's not 500. Lisa?
100?
No.
Orlando?
Correct. So let's see the answer.
Orlando.
It's what is $250 or more in the previous 12 months from the applicant. Okay, so Yvonne, you were partly right because you said $500, right? So if you receive, and so let's start with the rule first. If you're running for any elective office, you're running for city council, you're running for county board of supervisor, you're running for state assembly, state senate, Congress, president, doesn't matter. If you're running for any elective office, it's not tied to a city elective office. If you're running for any elective office and someone has come here and applied for a CUP for the gas station, let's use the same hypo, and they have given you a campaign donation of $250 or more in the last 12 months, then you have a conflict of interest. You either need to recuse or you need to give back the money if you want to participate. So there is a cure option. You can give back the money if you want to participate in the item. Okay? So that's 400 points for Orlando.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Larry, you have a question?
What if a commissioner was assisting a person running for office and raised money for a person running for office?
That's a very good question. If you have directed money towards them, then yes. If it reaches this dollar threshold, then you could potentially have a conflict as well. Other questions? Okay, let's go back to the main board. Orlando, you have the board. Planning for 300. By this phase, a development has secured all the needed local government approvals, also known as entitlements. Ivan? I'm sorry? No. This is saying after you've already been granted the CUP. So what is that phase called? Casey?
Approval?
No. Let's see the answer. It's the building phase. Right? So you get your approvals first, right? So you get your CUP first, you get your development permit first, right? If you're building homes, you know, you get your tentative tract map and you get your development permits. But then now you got to go to the building department and you got to get your building permit. So that's the building phase. That's what that's called. Okay? All right, let's go back to the main board. And I need a volunteer. Okay, Amelia? Public meetings for 200. Any congregation of a majority of the members of a legislative body at the same time and location, including teleconference location, as permitted by Government Code Section 54953, to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. Lisa?
Quorum. What is quorum?
No.
Oh.
Orlando? Correct.
Oh.
This is the definition of a meeting. What is a meeting under the Brown Act? Okay. Do I have? Hold on. Let me see if I have a question about. I don't think I'm going to question about quorum. So, Lisa, what's quorum?
Quorum is when you have, so we have 9 members on the planning commission. If we have the majority of those members or 5 members that meet at a location to discuss our
Right.
agenda, then we've met a
Exactly.
quorum and we are in violation.
Exactly. So if 4 of you show up, you can't have a meeting. You need 5. Okay? And Orlando actually got the points, so that's 200 points.
200 points.
And let's go back to the main board. Orlando, what would you like? Public meetings for 300. This person may have an individual removed for disrupting a meeting of the body after being warned that their
Jesus.
behavior is disruptive. Jesus?
What is the chair?
Correct. Let's see the answer. Who is the presiding member of the legislative body? Now, why did I phrase it that way? Because if the chair isn't here, who runs the meeting? And what if the vice chair isn't here? Correct. If both the chair and the vice chair are not here for the meeting and there's quorum, then there needs to be a vote taken to decide who's going to run the meeting. Okay? All right. Who got it right? Jesus?
Jesus
Okay.
got it.
All right, let's go back to the main board. Jesus, what would you like?
Public meetings for 400.
Public meetings for 400. These types of meetings are prohibited under the Brown Act. Lisa?
What are serial meetings?
Correct. What are
Oh.
serial meetings? So there are 2 types of serial meetings, okay? There's a chain meeting, and then there's what's called like spoken wheel. So let's take them one at a time. Example number 1 of a serial meeting is Lisa has a conversation with George, and they talk about something that's upcoming on next month's agenda, okay? And then George goes to Dolores and says, Dolores, I just had a meeting with Lisa. We decided this. Are you in agreement? Before Dolores even answers the question, well, actually, let me take it back. Normally, because these examples are normally for bodies of 5, so what I just said would be illegal for 5, but it's not illegal for you guys because you have a body of 9. So you actually need quorum. You need to have a conversation of a quorum of you. So you need 5 people to be involved. So George talked to Dolores, and Dolores talked to Larry. Now Larry talks to Jesus. And he asks, are you on board with the other 4 of us? And before Jesus answers the question, now you have a serial meeting under the Brown Act. Now you have a Brown Act violation. That's example number 1. Okay? Example number 2 is Lisa is the one that went to talk with George and Dolores and Larry and Jesus. So she's the center on that bicycle wheel, and she talked to everybody else. Okay? Another example of that is staff. Staff has 5 one-on-one meetings, with 5 different planning commissioners answering your questions about the agenda for the next meeting. But in those meetings, he is sharing what the other commissioners told him in those one-on-one meetings. That would be a Brown Act violation. Okay, so it also applies to interactions with staff. Any questions about that? Okay, let's go back to the main board. Who got that right?
Lisa.
Lisa.
did.
Okay, that was 400 points?
400 points.
Okay, Lisa, what would you like?
Let's finish the category for 5.
All right, public meetings for 500. These types of conversations do not violate the Brown Act if done in person, by email, or by text message, but they may violate the Brown Act if done on social media. Casey?
Casey?
Okay, I'm going to give it to you. Let's see the answer. What are one-on-one conversations? So, before 2020, I believe, is when the Brown Act was updated for social media specific regulations. It was always true that one-on-one conversations in person, on the phone, either calling them or text message, or a private email, that never violated the Brown Act, even if it was about what's on the upcoming agenda. That did not violate the Brown Act. A one-on-one conversation did not violate the Brown Act. Then, a couple years ago, they amended that to reverse that rule if it's on social media. So if Casey posts on his Facebook and he poses a question, which is the reason the legislature passed the legislation in the first place. They passed the legislature to encourage Casey to post on his Facebook and say, next week we have a warehouse project on our agenda. How do you think I should vote? That's the precise one of two reasons why they passed the legislation, because they wanted to facilitate interaction with the public. The second reason is to allow folks that typically can't make meetings, like a single mom who gets off of work at 7, to be able to interact with the process and have some influence, like seeing Casey's post and commenting and saying, Casey, I think you should vote no. Okay? So Casey made that post. All up until this point, no laws have been broken. But now, Orlando likes Casey's post. That is a violation under the Brown Act. What if instead of that, he put an emoji and he put a smiley face, emoji reaction? That violates the Brown Act. Any emoji reaction, one-on-one on social media, if it has to do with official agency business, violates it. If he commented on his post and said anything, that would violate the Brown Act. If he shared Casey's post to his own Facebook with or without his own narrative, that would violate the Brown Act. If he screenshot Casey's post and posted it on his own Facebook, that would violate the Brown Act. Okay? So there's a very clear demarcation. When it's social media and when it's where people can see it, one-on-one about official agency business is not allowed, period. But it remains allowed when it's done, to use your words, Casey, privately. Privately. So when you think about social media, there are private messaging functions, right? Facebook has a private messaging function. So does Instagram. So does Snapchat. Okay? If you saw that post, Orlando, and you sent a private message to Casey and said, I DM'd him exactly, and I said, and then you said, you know what? This is how I'm feeling about the project. Would that violate the Brown Act? No. Correct. It would not. That's a private one-on-one communication. Okay, so it's only when it's visible to the public on social media. Okay? Any questions about that? Yeah. So the test is whether or not it's within your subject matter jurisdiction. So do you have any authority in your capacity as a planning commissioner on who is the mayor? Right. You pause because you're thinking of yourself as a voter because you live here, but that wasn't the question. Do you, as a planning commissioner, have authority over who is the mayor? No. Or any other council member? No. Do you have any authority to hire or fire any single employee in the city? No, you don't. So can you do that? Can you make those posts on your social media? Yes, you can. And they would not violate the Brown Act because that's not within your authority. So it's a very good question. Very good question. But you can do that. Other questions?
Well, let me up the ante a little bit. So what if, hypothetically speaking, the comment is not just about the council person or whoever else, but it's about a project that had been before the Planning Commission that a city council voted for or against, or that may be coming back to the Planning Commission for additional consideration. How does that chime in?
Very good question. So remember I told you that for ordinances, amending the zoning code, general plan amendments, specific plan amendments, they're going to come to you for what?
Quasi judicial.
No,
Recommendation.
they're coming to you for a recommendation. Okay, now they go to the council, okay? But the council substantially changes something. Well, if that happens, it could come back to the planning commission for review. And if someone has made a post about the project in its revised form after the council made its changes, and it's going to come back to you to study and make a new recommendation, now you have what? No, you're exhibiting what?
Bias.
You're exhibiting bias. Okay. If you post prior to the change, you won't have bias until the moment that it's amended. And even then, it's not clear that you would have bias, but if you call me and say, Albert, do I have bias here? I would say, you know what, you probably do. I think you need to clear the record, and when we go to the public hearing, I think you need to acknowledge you made this post, but that you're keeping an open mind, and that you're going to make your decision based only on what's been presented before you. Okay? So usually there's still a way to cure that. Okay? But yeah, that's a good question, Gabriel, and I think, you know, there could be instances where you do have bias like that. It's kind of wonky, but it can happen. Other questions? Well, again, I don't want to scare you with that because, again, going back to the reason the legislature made that change was to facilitate it. Okay, they want to encourage that, but I'm just telling you what your limitations are. Okay? All right, let's go back to the main board. Casey? Planning for 400. This kind of plan can be considered a super zoning ordinance that can dictate architectural styles, landscaping requirements, parking requirements, etc. Casey? Correct. What is a specific plan? Very good. Let's go back to the main board. What would you like? Planning for 500. In the context of a conditional use permit, this number of findings need to be affirmatively shown in the negative, meaning that they were not met, in order to justify denying the project. Lisa?
What is 2?
No. Casey? What is 3? No. Jesus? What is 1?
1.
Correct. Correct. So, in order to approve a project, depending on what the entitlement is, there could be, 4, 5, 6, 7 findings. In order to approve, every finding has to be met, every single one. But in order to deny, only one has to be shown that it was not met. Okay, we just did that, right? Now, you might have gotten confused because there were 2 findings that were shown not to be met, but the only legal threshold is 1. Okay?
So before we go on to the next category, let's go over the leaderboard. Lisa has 1,000 points. Casey has 1,100. Jesus has 800. Orlando 600. Ivan 100. So, let's play.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay, who has the board?
Casey
Jesus.
got it. Who got the last answer?
Jesus had the last one.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah.
public.
So
I'm sorry. For how much?
200.
Okay, for 200 public participation. This type of speech is not protected during public comment.
Lisa.
Hate speech?
Very good. I'm gonna. Well, actually, okay. We're not gonna give anyone points. We're not
Okay.
gonna give anyone points because I misspoke.
Okay.
Hate speech is protected by the Constitution. So the answer is what are threats of violence against person, because hate speech is constitutionally protected. Okay? So if someone comes up to the lectern here and says, I don't like gay people, I don't like black people, I don't like women, I don't think any one of those people should ever serve on this planning commission, that is their First Amendment right to say so. You can't shut them down. You can't kick them out. You can't turn off their mic. Okay? It's only if they are threatening violence. So it's, you know, and where's that line? Well, if they say, you know, I've told you before you need to resign. I don't want any women on this commission. I've told you before, and if you don't resign by the next planning commission meeting, I know where you live, and you might just see me there. That would be a threat of violence. Again, a lot of these things are not going to be, if they're sophisticated, they're not going to be, you know, super clear. But I am going to resolve every ambiguity in favor of protecting all of you, and I'm going to take the broadest interpretation in order to protect you. So if they say, oh, I'm going to come over for a barbecue, I'm still going to consider that a threat of violence because of what they started as, right? I don't want you on this commission. So threats of violence, threats of violence. Okay, Lisa, I'm going to have you keep the board, okay? And you're going to have the next question.
Let's go public participation for 300.
Public participation for 300, double the amount of time. Lisa?
What is when you need an interpreter?
Correct. Let's see the answer. We also had that tonight. What is the amount of time a person must be given to provide public comment when using a translator? Very good. That was 300 points. Okay, let's go back to the main board. Lisa?
Public participation for 500.
Public participation for 500. This type of behavior is allowed even if it offends, as long as it does not prevent the legislative body from accomplishing its business in a reasonably efficient manner.
Jesus.
You're technically correct, okay, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Who is next?
Casey?
No.
Okay.
And I'm going to explain that disruptive behavior is not going to be allowed. Okay, who's next? A little bit more, a little bit more. Give me the buzzword. Give me the buzz phrase. No? Lisa?
What is just like vulgar language, hate?
No. Okay, Orlando, I'm going to give it to you because you were the closest. Let's see the answer. What is First Amendment protected speech? Okay, so Jesus, you're technically correct. Hate speech is protected under the First Amendment, but I was looking for the whole category here. Okay, and Casey, disruptive behavior is not protected by the First Amendment. So if you have people here hollering on the megaphone or even just with the power of their own voice and they're disrupting the meeting, and the definition of disruption is, can you all do your business or not? Can you carry on with doing your business? If the answer is yes, they're not being disruptive. If the answer is no, they're being disruptive. So in my hypothetical, they're here, they're chanting, you can't hear yourselves, that's disrupting the meeting, okay? But if you had 10 people that sat in the first 10 seats right here with a sign that said anything, is that disruptive? Why not? Exactly.
It's
very good.
It's distracting, not, yeah.
Exactly. It's not disruptive because you can hear yourselves, you can conduct business, but now you're forced to read their sign. Okay, but that's not being disruptive. All right. So Orlando, you got the points, 500 points.
500 points.
And you have the board.
Orlando, you have the board.
Okay, public integrity for 500. The Fair Political Practices Commission has set this amount as the gift limit for 2024. Lisa?
What is $50? $49.99?
No.
Whoa.
Oh.
Ivan?
Correct. Let's see it.
What did he say?
$590.
Oh.
500
Yeah.
points to Senor Garcia.
We.
All right. Very
All right.
good. That's what you were getting at. Yes. Yes. Okay. I think this is the last question.
Last question.
All right. Let's just go to it. Miscellaneous for 500. After a vote is taken, only a member of this group may make a motion to reconsider.
Orlando?
No. Lisa?
Lisa?
A member in favor of the item?
Yes, I'm going to give that to you.
Wow.
It's a member of the majority. A member of the majority. Okay? A member of the majority vote. So if, there's 9 of you. So if a vote is split 5-4, one of you who voted for it said, well, I want to vote again. Can't do it. It's got to be one of the 5 that makes a motion. And we've been through that before here too.
Yeah,
We've been through that.
Yeah,
Okay?
last meeting.
So it has to be someone in the majority that says, you know what, I changed my mind. I'm going to make a motion to reconsider.
Right.
That motion has to be seconded. That has to pass by simple majority. And then a new motion can be brought, seconded, and voted upon. Okay?
Good.
Very good. So that was the whole game. I'll let Gabriel tally the points right now, but any questions on anything that we covered?
No, but I got a comment.
Go ahead.
Becoming a commissioner, I did a little bit of research and homework, and I take it seriously with all the other stuff I do in my life, whatever it may be. But this game has really opened my eyes, and there's a lot of things that I couldn't answer, but that I had in the back of my head, and I just couldn't push it out, and another commissioner pushed it out, and I'm like, yes. So it excites me to see them, get educated, and I appreciate the time that was taken into this. But this is really fun and informational and educational. So thank you.
Yeah, and also I think a lot of people miscategorize what a Brown Act violation is. And with this exercise, you clearly understand what it is and what it's not, and what it could be and what it shouldn't be. But more than that, it answers other questions for you, so that as you go ahead, in your duties as planning commissioners, you become a little bit more aware. So having said that, the Jeopardy champion for tonight is Lisa with
All right.
1,800 points.
Congratulations. Any last questions? All right. Thank you for playing with me. Yes, I'd be happy to share it with Jennifer, and she can email it to all of you. You're welcome.
Item number 6, Madam Chair.
Okay, item number 6, discussion to consider a recommendation to amend the development code to add additional regulations on specified warehouse projects. Okay.
Just to give Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, just to give you a little bit of a background, at our last Planning Commission meeting, when you raising your hand? At the last Planning Commission meeting, when the person from AQMD came and made a presentation, you had requested that we brought this item back for you to give us some guidelines going forward, especially when it comes to warehousing projects. So the item is here on the agenda this evening based on that request. Albert, I see a few faces that don't seem to remember that this request was made. Can you, we talked about this earlier.
Yes, so AQMD gave the presentation last meeting, I believe. There was a question raised, I forget from which commissioner, about could you impose new conditions on projects if it wasn't in the code? And the answer was mostly no. What you can do is you can include as a condition of approval that requires them to comply with all applicable laws. So as an example, some of the projects even that came to you tonight, it said you need to get an AQMD permit. I think the Vulcan item was one of them. You have to get an AQMD permit if required. okay? And then you have that as a condition. You don't need to have that in your code to impose it as a condition because it's required already. But by adding it as a condition to the project, it allows you to, if they don't get the AQMD permit, now you can haul them back before you and say, well, you didn't get your AQMD permit, therefore you didn't comply with this condition of approval, therefore we're going to revoke your entitlement. So that you can do, and you don't need to update your code. And I think staff is in the process of kind of making sure that every project has a condition like that they have to comply with all applicable federal, state, local laws and regulations, right, Gabriel?
Yeah.
And so the next thing is, well, what about a code update? What can you actually put in your code? And I think staff can speak to, I think they probably need to get more information from AQMD about what they do. And the next part is, well, when is the right time to add it into the code? And speaking with staff, and they can speak more to this, it appears that probably the best time to add something to the code would be in this comprehensive zoning code update that staff is in the middle of. And so, at this time, after staff can give some additional comments, maybe you can provide staff kind of your thoughts, if you have any, about what you would like staff to explore or consider as possibly including in the code. And again, I know if staff needs more information from AQMD, you probably do as well. But if you have any thoughts, you could provide them now because it is agendized. But Gabriel, do you have any more thoughts?
Yes, I do actually. So the specific project had to do with the one that we just heard earlier this evening under consent calendar, which was the truck parking facility. We came up with some conditions of approval that seem to go over and beyond what we would typically allow. That's not even codified, such as the hours of operation. And so, and then the AQMD person talked about the agency requires some kind of a special permit for any kind of warehouse buildings that are over 100,000 square feet. Now, we didn't have any idea that the AQMD requires that. So as we go forward, are there any conditions of approval changes that you would like to see as it pertains specifically to warehouse projects that might make them, in a situation like the one we just heard earlier this evening, make them more palatable with or compatible with, with a, the sensitive land use, for example, because we do have existing residential that are abutting industrial properties, and when it comes to certain types of projects, we have to find a kind of level ground. So these are the kinds of things that we want to hear from you, rather than just, we don't want them because they're not compatible. But it's in our zoning code, and each residential property rights are as important as the industrial owner's property rights to develop as well. So are there any kinds of conditions that you would see that would help you to better make a recommendation on a project when you have this, countervening zoning designations?
Madam Chair? Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I yield to you, Vice Chair.
Well, thank you. I would just like to take the opportunity to put on my Chamber of Commerce hat. And I have belonged to the Chamber of Commerce for 20-plus years. And I can't tell you how many times we get phone calls to the Chamber of Commerce of the difficulty people run into and the time restraints they run into securing building permits and the whole process. Now, I do know that sometimes they don't submit things properly. I've talked to a lot of planners. I've tried to really help people out. But the thought of adding one more little level for an approval of a planning or building process, to me, is just unnecessary, totally. I had a business. I shut it down a couple years ago. And every business in town, every business that operates knows about the AQMD. They make themselves very aware, and they have pretty stiff fines if you are not abiding by their rules. Why would the city need another policing agency to police AQMD approvals, or require that as an inspector on a building permit to make sure the AQMD process has been met. I don't know of many cities, maybe if we were to mention that every city around us is doing this, but there are reasons that they're not. And I don't think San Bernardino should take this opportunity to do that. It's a measure that I think is handled by another governmental agency. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. So I have a handful of thoughts on this. And backing up, when by the time a project's come to getting to us here, the applicant and staff have gone through tremendous amount of work, time, energy, and money to go through the process, to go to DRC, to go through plan check, all of that. So by the time it's coming to us, lots of time has already gone into it. And more often than not, by the time it gets to us here, conditions of approval have already been laid out, generally agreed upon, all of that. That's not to say that by the time it comes to the Planning Commission, it's already fully baked and ready to go, because sometimes things change. But by and large, staff does not have discretion to say no. If this land use is allowed, if this land use type is allowed in this zone and it's an allowable use, staff's hands are pretty much tied, and in a way that they follow the law, they follow the process, and the applicant meets all of that. So what I'm going to say is probably pretty unpopular, and I'll just go ahead and say it. I don't necessarily think that the Planning Commission is the right venue to talk about conditional use changes for the types of projects that are being discussed here. And I'll just go a step further. To me, if we were to do anything, it would have to start with, this is the unpopular part, a conversation around a moratorium on new warehouse development in the city of San Bernardino, to put a complete pause on it, which is not our authority, it's the city council's. But if we want to get to a point where we're having a serious conversation about warehouse development in San Bernardino, we can't expect staff to arbitrarily make denials for projects as long as they've met the requirements that are outlined within the development code and the general plan. So if there's a concern about further warehouse development in the city of San Bernardino, to me, the most appropriate venue for that is to start with the city council and perhaps discuss a moratorium on warehouse development, so we can really have a conversation about what belongs in the general plan, what types of uses do we want to see in this industrial area, in this industrial development, what types of buffers do we want, because honestly, the development that's come to San Bernardino in the last 30 years has just been the development that's come, right? And that's been warehouses and logistics facilities. Because as Dr. Husing said, for the last 30 years, cheap dirt, cheap labor. That's what you have out here. So if we as a city do not want to see more warehouses going in across the street from houses and other residential developments, then it's got to be something that's more than just asking staff to apply conditions of approval to a project that by law has to get presented for approval. So, I'll stop there, but that's my general thought for now.
As the maker of the motion, my comments are along the lines of, it wasn't necessarily, my comment wasn't directed towards warehouses. My comment wasn't directed to make the city appear to be less business friendly. In all transparency, as an individual who worked in this department for 14 years, to label this department as difficult, to label this department as it's difficult to get plans through, it's difficult to get approval is not fair. And that's not fair to direct that towards this department or this staff, because that's not always the case. It's 99% of the time that is not the case. that's not fair to label that to staff. What I was looking for was to just make sure that when development is coming to this city, that we are encouraging them, developers, to follow all applicable state laws. So I don't see what the problem is of having their condition of approval saying, yes, I am going to follow state laws. I already know I have to get a permit from AQMD. I do have my permit. Here it is. My permit is in the works. Here's a letter stating that it's in the works. That's not business unfriendly. That's making sure that what is being developed here in the city is following state law and state guidelines. So that was my intent in bringing this forward, was to make sure that and if they're not following state guidelines or they're not following the rules, then they shouldn't be allowed to operate. You should be following all applicable rules. And that should be an enforceable condition.
Thank you, Commissioner Sherrick. Travis, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'll just jump in with a couple things if I can, because we're hitting a lot of good points, but it's kind of it's mixing things up a little bit. One thing I do just want to clarify, just to piggyback on what Commissioner Sherrick just said and to Commissioner Quill's comment. The language that we're talking about adding, and I think what Albert referred to, it's not something, we already have similar language to that in the resolutions, including the ones that were in front of you this evening, for compliance with other agencies. Fire department, technically another agency. It's more of just a nod to, you do need to go through this process. We do any new kind of food use. There's comments in there about compliance and obtaining all necessary approvals through the public health department. We're not the ones going out and enforcing that. If I understand that to be your concern, I'm not knocking on a door, on one of my projects, if making sure where's your health permit, but it's in there to just put on record, you do have to follow these other steps by going to those agencies and doing that. So I think that's meant to sort of be a middle ground. We're not trying to go heavy-handed. We're not trying to make it more complicated. We're just trying to put a little bit out there just to make it clear that there are other rules beyond just what the city's enforcing and are expressly written conditions that you do need to abide by. To Commissioner Daley's comments, yes, appreciate the point that and the understanding that, yes, when we do have projects coming forward, frustrating as it can seem, to those, that may just be seeing the project for the first time, we do have limits on what we can do. We have the code, we have to follow it. If we're putting something in a condition or some kind of design standard that's not expressly written in there, there has to be some logical connection. Sometimes we have mitigation measures, as an example, on the environmental that may not be written into the code, but they're a result of something that has developed through the project, and we can tie that in. I think what we're looking at, and a little bit of what our idea with this item this evening is, we do understand we have a lot of concern with the logistics uses, the warehousing, trucking, all of the kind of ancillary businesses with that. It is something that is important to the city. It has brought a lot into the city. I mean, the negative effects notwithstanding, and of course those are out there, there's still been a lot of benefit. And to what Gabriel had mentioned is, we're going through our update right now. I'm looking at the land use map every day. That's really what I come in, I open up the map, and then I close it and I go home. And the city has a lot of industrial blocks. They're near residential. They're near other sensitive uses. I'll be very frank, there is no possible way that we are ever going to eliminate that. It's just the way the city is. It's already developed. There's things we can do with buffering. There are things that we are trying to do with, maybe certain areas maybe can be slightly rezoned. But if there's a house already, we're not going to get rid of somebody's house. If there's a warehouse somewhere, we're not going to go in and do that, because I'm sure Albert could give us plenty of reasons why we would run afoul of things if we did. So we're trying to look at ways that we can figure out how to work kind of between those two uses. We still have a lot of land that exists that some way or another is going to abut one or both of those types of activities. And we're trying to figure ways that when we bring projects forward, with the intent that we can continue to develop new businesses. We can also make sure that we're looking out for those existing uses. So what we're looking for is not, specifics, not exactly what we should do, but just, the concerns that you guys have, that you may hear from other people within the city, of things that we should be looking for, things that you would like to see us look for, to possibly develop new standards on how we buffer or how we design certain sites. Those would then be things that we could actually put into the code, to the commissioner's comment, that we would then have the authority to enforce. It wouldn't just be something we're trying to come up with arbitrarily because we don't happen to like this one property, because it happens to abut some residential. That being the difficulty that we had with the item from the beginning of the meeting and from last month. So if we can look at those types of things, that are consistent concerns, we can go in, we will then do the research. It would be part of our comprehensive update that we're doing, and try to develop, objective standards that we can put into the code. That is a phrase you're going to hear a lot over the next year. I apologize right now. Finding ways we can put in those types of standards that could just make sense when you're in proximity or abutting some type of use or something. So we're looking for just kind of a little bit of feedback. Basically it's a listening session, I think, for us. If there are things that you do have concern with, I'm ready to take the notes down and see what we can try to bring back to you as we bring forward those updates. I don't know if hopefully that helps a little bit.
Question. So are you suggesting that in that portion of the application or the planning approval where it says to conform with all applicable laws, fire, health, so on, you just add the word AQMD? That'd be simple.
That is one option, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the most straightforward option for that specific aspect. And we can look, and I think it's possibly worth the exercise on our end. Depending on certain types of projects, you're not going to have to put AQMD on every use going in. You have a new subdivision going in, that's not going to really be as applicable. So we can, what I was saying, and I'm sorry, is, having that kind of condition, that you do need to make sure to follow these others, and then we, can tailor that for specific projects. Maybe there's certain agencies that we know they're going to need to address. Maybe there's ones we don't include. So it's not just a catch-all of, half conditions that don't really make sense. I don't know if that answers what you were.
It does, but what I thought I was hearing is that the AQMD be a condition on the planning, and that we were going to have some sort of an action to where when our inspectors go out there, perhaps they'd get a sign-off that they confirm that they have applied for or received AQMD approvals for their project?
I would say it's not something, so yes, the first part, I think we're on the same page. It would be something in the conditions of approval said. If you look at any of if you look specifically, I think I can reference the final item, the truck, or the impound yard. There's a condition in there that speaks to compliance with other agencies. Currently, it doesn't specifically reference that one, but that's the area that I'm speaking to broadly. As far as how we go in about enforcing that, it's not we already do things similar to that right now, because there are things in there about, I want to say like certain things with, school district, with county, public health, things like that. Certain types of developments, when they go in, before they can pull building permits, there are checklists. There are other agencies that you have to show the approval from. Really easy one, we put in there the water department, because they, I don't know, depending on who you ask, they're part of the city and they're their own agency. When you're coming in to pull a building permit, before you can pull it, after your plans have been approved, there's a checklist of the agencies that you have to show sign-offs from. They're one of them. It would be something broadly similar to that. So, and that's something that I think we could coordinate potentially with AQMD, or at least talk to them, about how we might be able to work that to identify the projects that we know would need those permits, and then we could make that just a punch list item before they can pull permits. So I think, kind of to what Gabriel had said, those buildings over the certain size, the 100,000 square feet, if we have a permit we're ready to issue for that, we have to make sure that you've shown that before. It's really it. It's not anything outside of processes that already exist. It's just maybe we'd check 3 and now we're checking 4. So it'd be really, the intent would be a minimal disruption, if any.
If I may. I mean, from that side, it sounds like we're talking broad, but from this item, it's pretty specific. It's saying amending the development code specific to warehouses. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, there's already, the development code's already there. I'm not sure that having to check another box that's coming from us specific to a warehouse is needed, but here it's pretty specific, and from you, it sounds like it's a more broad statement. I think the AQMD is pretty stringent already. It sounds like, I don't know if we're trying to do their job. They already have regulations that they do, but that's just my opinion. It's pretty specific here.
Okay, good. Commissioner Daly, did you have a comment?
Oh, I have a thought on, I have 2 thoughts, actually. The first thought is, I'm a big fan of best practices. I'm a big fan of looking around other agencies that are thriving and succeeding, and looking at how those folks are doing the stuff that they're doing. We live in a very large region. We live in a region that has some very successful cities and some cities that have yet to fulfill their potential. And I think it would be helpful for me, at least as a commissioner, and maybe some of my commissioners, my fellow commissioners as well, if we were provided some options and ideas that other cities around us that have proliferation of warehouse development, how they handle certain things. I think that would be helpful from a standpoint of understanding what other folks are doing. Because as I look around the region, I spend a lot of time in both Riverside and San Marino counties. I see the cities of Jurupa Valley, Paris, Moreno Valley, Ranch Cucamonga, Fontana, Ontario, unincorporated portions of Bloomington. I can keep going, right? There's a massive warehouse off the 10 out in Banning right now. So there's lots of examples, I think, where we could potentially benefit from understanding how other cities are dealing with certain conditional uses around warehouse development. And one thing that I would like for the city and the city staff to take into consideration and perhaps come back to us with some thoughts on is how these projects are going to be aligning with CARB's Advanced Clean Fleet Rules. And so this is the statewide transition to zero emission vehicles. This is state of California requires, as of January 1, 2024, half of all the new vehicles that the city of San Bernardino purchases have to be zero emission. The state is moving towards a zero emission vehicle approach. That means charging stations, potentially hydrogen fueling stations will need to be considered as part of the plan, as part of the development when it comes to potentially approving new projects. So the Advanced Clean Fleet Rule is one that I'd like to at least throw out there for thoughts and considerations. Yeah, that's it for now. Thanks.
Back to you, Madam Chair.
I agree with what he said. We need some kind of sample of what you're asking us, because I'm not clear on what you're asking us. If we had a sample, then we can tweak it, and we know what we're looking at. We're just kind of broad throwing things out right now because it's not clear.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, what we can do at the next Planning Commission meeting is bring back some samples of what some other jurisdictions have done to really address this issue of warehousing and other kind of logistic centers. And some cities have actually gone into some very, very detailed look into it, and they become very, very sophisticated at it. We haven't really taken a deep dive into this. Our reaction is to just reject them and other places, they have embraced them, but they've put in these really high standards that, for you to comply, I mean, you would, you're in if it gets allowed or not. I don't know if that's the direction you want to go, but at least it gives you an idea of what our neighbors are doing, because we're all sharing the same air basin. And if they are handling it in one particular way, it doesn't mean we should necessarily handle it that way, but it gives us a perspective of how it's been done in other jurisdictions, rather than just not address it at all. At least we can say, okay, these are the standards. We got a list of 1,000 things. If you can make all 1,000, there you go. If you can't make half of it, goodbye. That kind of thing.
I know I took a tour with a gentleman that's usually at the council meetings. We took a tour of different warehousing areas, like in Rancho. Very nice, they're warehouses, but they're very nice, so we could raise our standards.
Absolutely.
So yes, if we can have some samples.
I mean, for
that would give us
example,
something to go
the
from.
city of Fontana has some very fantastic ideas about their warehousing. Very, very detailed. If that's what you envision for San Bernardino, we can definitely bring you an example of that, and then we can have set aside a planning commission discussion on a date when we don't have a lot of other items on the agenda, and kind of take a deep dive into it and come up with some really masterful recommendations. The challenge we have, though, is we're going through a zoning code update at this particular time, so we need to figure out how that timing works. If we need to go back and make it a part of the ordinance, et cetera, but we can bring something back to you at a future meeting.
Hey, Gabriel, I just wanted to mention, I know in a past planning commission meeting, you mentioned, I know our public has, it seems, complained about car washes, warehouses, and environment. In one of the past meetings, you mentioned, obviously, our head count within our city and how many car stations are really within our city. I think that puts it in perspective. Maybe we could do the same thing for warehouses. 'Cause
Sure.
It seems like we're getting a lot of complaints on warehouses, but compared to the area that our city has, I think it's very minimal.
It's
because there's a lot of residential. For example, the project that we just voted on, right? We just approved a parking lot 2-3 months ago. Now we didn't approve. I'm not sure why. And again, it goes back to environment, warehouses. That's the main complaints that we get from residents. I think sharing those numbers puts it in perspective. And kind of going back to this development code, I think checklists would work if we could get a checklist from every department, from building, public works, just the different departments that we have in our city. That sometimes puts it into perspective. So that's all that I have.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we can do definitely is we can bring you square footages of warehouse development in this city or in the county over a 10-year period, and make a comparison, and you can see statistically where we stack. And if our square footage for warehousing is way below, let's say, Fontana or Ontario or even Rancho Cucamonga, I mean, we complain more. And what is the difference? Why are they able to absorb it and still maintain some level of sanity, and we can't? So maybe those numbers would actually shed some light, but we can gradually introduce those things.
And I do want to mention, I do agree with Dolores. Like, I think she brought up a real good comment about Rancho Cucamonga. If their warehouses are looking good, why not upsize or improve our standard in our city?
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Good.
Oh, I mean, I like the direction of this conversation. And not to be greedy, but when warehouses take up a lot of land, so first of all, I love the idea of kind of coming back and kind of getting an idea of like how much square foot of industrial amount of industrial projects that we have. And I would personally like to also, veering off course a little bit, but I'd also be curious to see what kind of commercial retail we have, the amount of commercial retail, because to me, in some ways a bit of the trade-off, right? I live in downtown. My wife and I went to a movie a couple nights ago, and we wanted to go to dinner in downtown, sit down, have a beer. Couldn't do it, right? There's no place in downtown where you can go after dark and sit down and have a meal, have a beverage. You just can't. I can drive a quarter mile and get millions of square feet of industrial warehouse space. So as a resident, right, as a quality of life issue, I have a hard time looking at the land uses of 1 million square feet and saying, okay, that's good. However, San Bernardino has not had a history of maintaining its finances very well either. And so, you know, not to say that there's a trade-off, but, you know, if we can have a sense that a new project is going to serve as a point of sale location or is going to be generating some level of actual revenue for the city beyond the handful of jobs that come that are going to go away because they're going to get automated anyway, because that's the direction the economy is going, is automation of warehouse jobs. That might make it a bit more palatable to approve large projects if we knew that there was going to be a revenue stream that was going to come from that project, much like an auto mall generates significant amount of sales tax revenue, or insert other revenue generating operation here. Mm-hmm. That might make it a little bit more palatable to approve, because then we're like, okay, well at least the city's going to get some money to get those potholes fixed and to maintain the parks, or deal with the homeless, or add some more cops. I mean, all of the quality of life issues that we're dealing with have to be paid for, and so if there was some sort of an analysis around what revenue would be coming to this city as a result of a project, I realize that's getting a little bit further out of the Planning Commission scope here, but you asked for thoughts, so I'm sharing thoughts.
Yeah. Madam Chair, Commissioner Daly, I think you would find a direct correlation between those cities in the county that have a very strong commercial economic base and a very strong industrial economic base. And when you look at Ontario, they have them all. I mean, they're doing very well. So when you have warehouse development in their city, it doesn't have a significant impact on anything. When you look at Rancho Cucamonga, they have a mall, and same thing goes. We just lost Carousel Mall. So, and if you're looking for any activity in the downtown area, you're not going to see that at the level you would see in Rancho Cucamonga or Ontario, or even some other adjoining cities for that matter. But that could change depending on the choices that the city makes going forward. Our goal is to transform this downtown area into a thriving, exciting place you want to be at night. Because right now it's quite scary to be around here at night, and I say that from experience because I've seen it. But I think what we'll do is, we'll bring you some information, bring you some comparison. We'll do square footages. We'll go, over the last, 10, 20 years or so, how many have we built, and how many have other jurisdictions built. And we do the same thing for for revenue base. But just to be clear, the highest generator for the city of San Bernardino when it comes to income is the sales tax. Period. We're not property tax city. Property tax comes lower. It's sales tax, and those sales tax come from smaller, isolated commercial pockets, as opposed to a huge mall. Gas stations, AMPMs, and Starbucks, and fast food restaurants, and so on and so forth. So that's where we're doing okay, but not compared to having Ontario Mall or the one in Rancho Cucamonga or some of the other ones in other jurisdictions. But we're getting more. We're getting more of them. And I think the more we show that we are a stable community that can sustain these kinds of resources the better our outlook is going to be. So it's kind of optimistic, but I share concern about the downtown area. I really do.
A question, while we're in this process of reevaluating, can we get a moratorium? I think that was mentioned. Can we
Of
have a
course.
moratorium
Of
on
course. I mean,
warehousing
if
until
if
we
we
get this?
if we raise this level to the attention of the city council, definitely it can happen. And then you say, we want to take a pause. We want to take a time out. We want to do some assessment. We want to see where do you want to go going forward. And if they think, oh yeah, this is really necessary because of the following reasons. And you know, we've done that. We've had moratoriums before in the past where we prohibited certain types of land uses, and we still have it in place at this particular time. So we've done it before. It can be done again, but we would have to just make justification for why we're doing it. But it can be done.
I just wanted to add that I wanted to echo a lot of Commissioner Daly's comments, just concerned about the economic future of the city, locking us into an industry that is not giving us high quality jobs. As someone who grew up in the area, went to college and grad school outside of the area, I'm less than a handful of folks I know who came back to the city. So I'd like for us to consider those folks and those type of jobs for folks to come back.
Absolutely.
I'll also note that in several previous meetings, we also raised potential, I think it might have been development code amendment around warehouses, specific sizes, needing to go through planning commission approval rather than just the DERC approval. So I'd also like that to be noted, just because it's come up several times, and it would save staff and the applicant time if they know an appellant is going to file against DERC approval. That just, I think efficiently it would just make sense for it to just come straight to planning commission, and the public would appreciate more discussion about a project that would be coming in their area.
Do you have any square footage in mind, Commissioner Flores?
I mean, for consistency, I think 100,000 with the where rule might make sense. But yeah, curious how other cities are also doing.
Good. Very good.
Thank you. I would also like to see if other cities encourage warehouse, since that's the subject we're talking about, warehouse development that works with the communities that they're going in. You know, just because we approved one project doesn't mean we need to approve the other one when it's going to put an impact onto the residents. And the residents should be one of our concerns as well. Our residents deserve better. They deserve better than to be living surrounded by businesses that don't benefit them. And so if there's some way that this business could benefit them, is there a pocket park that they could maybe put in place and maintain so that that burden doesn't fall back onto the city? You know, is there some, I do like the buffering, I do like increased buffering. When we talk about other cities, we don't see their warehouses all the way to the sidewalk. Their warehouses are set back even further off the street. And so things like that, that maybe fit in with the community more than what we currently see. And so not, you know, just creating that benefit to the community that they're going into as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Sherrick. Madam
Also,
Chair?
I have a question. Is there, in doing your research and looking into these other warehouse areas, is there, or can you see if any of them have any type of planning to accommodate the cost of the infrastructure that they're tearing up over the period of time? The roads are being destroyed by all these trucks. And I know that when they're originally approved, a lot of times they put money in infrastructure, but after that, I don't think there's a plan to continue to contribute to
maintenance
infrastructure improvements. Like some sort of a plan. I know they're paying property tax, but a lot of that doesn't come back to the to our infrastructure.
Absolutely.
And that's what's getting torn up.
We'll look into that. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Luffy's, yes, something that I've discussed several times. And also some of these warehouses were built in areas where the city didn't receive a lot of fees. If they were in an IVDA area, those fees didn't come to the city. They were given credits, and so we're not getting a benefit from that either.
Very good. Thank you very much. Madam Chair?
Any other comments? Okay.
I'll just emphasize the truck route. I know it's in process, but a truck route is very important and
It
necessary.
is in process.
Oh, the study?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Can you anticipate when it'll be done for us to review? I remember the last one, every road in San Bernardino was gonna be a truck route. That was
Okay.
crazy.
Travis?
Yeah.
I would say that at this point now, and really it just comes down to staffing, because I'm the staff. The truck routes, general plan, the dev code, our downtown plan, we're really kind of working simultaneously with all of them, mainly because they do kind of commingle with each other so much. So we're really looking at bringing everything forward kind of in one large push. And right now we're talking drafts, for actual public review around the end of the year. That's what we're shooting for.
Any other comments? Okay, proceed.
Thank you.
Do we vote on this?
No,
nothing
it's
to vote
just
on.
it's just a discussion item.
Oh,
Unless you
okay.
want to give us
Okay.
give us specific direction. I think we've talked about us bringing something back to the Planning Commission at your next meeting, and then that could become the catalyst to future discussion, and what it's going to end up with, and et cetera, et cetera. So, good.
Okay, now we go to item number 7.
Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, at the last Planning Commission meeting, this item was requested, and we couldn't really act on it unless it's agendized. The item itself specifically discusses not just the planning commissioners in general, but it was very specific as to the chair. And so the discussion this evening would be focused on removal of the chair of the Planning Commission. If there's a sustaining vote to do that, then we go through that process, and then we have a nomination for a replacement for the chair, and then that would be the way that this process would conclude. So.
Okay, this is we do motion on, right? It's not a
So
dis-
yeah, so
Oh, okay.
at this particular point, we would entertain a motion if we still want to, removal of the Planning Commission. If there's if there's a majority vote for the removal, then we go for an appointment.
Okay. I need a motion.
I would like to make a motion to re-elect and appoint or nominate
Right.
Larry Quill as our chair for Planning Commission.
Okay, we would need
So one at a time.
a second.
First we
The
remove.
first has to be removal.
Got it, sorry.
And if that passes, then you can
We
make
go
a
to
motion to
Appoint.
nominate someone.
So I need a motion to remove. Somebody.
All right, I'll make a motion to remove our current chair.
Okay. I need a second.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. A motion by Commissioner Ivan Gassier, seconded by Commissioner Coyle. Call for the vote.
Can
Or
I-
any
I'm s-
comments, questions,
Yeah, I have a question. Before we take the vote, I'm relatively new to this commission. I think this might now be my 3rd meeting. And so I would like, I might benefit maybe from hearing just some of the rationale behind this, because it seems a little off time for us to be going through a new selection of removing a chair and then appointing a new chair and a new vice chair. And so I just, just like to understand a little bit behind kind of what the logic and the thought process here before we take the vote.
So yeah, the reason I brought this in front of the Planning Commission was, one, I was absent the day the chair was nominated and voted for. And second, I think our current chair hasn't been very respectful to our staff. That was basically my second item. And my third reason was because when I was absent, I wanted to nominate Larry Quell. So that's the reason I brought this to our Planning Commission.
Okay. And bylaws doesn't dictate specifically when we can or can't. It just basically depends on the other members of the Planning Commission. So if there is a desire to make a change, we can make that change. It's still within the bylaws. There's no violation of the bylaws. There's no cycle for when we can replace or not replace a chair. So we've got Commissioner Garcia's motion, and we've got a second by Commissioner Quell.
And I've got a question. Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
ma'am.
How have I been disrespectful? I understand the quail part, I'm thirsty. But how have I been disrespectful to the staff? I'd like clarification. Can I? I don't yell at them. I don't call them. I just like some clarification. I have disrespected staff.
So
Please have
basically the reason for the disrespect, I feel that sometimes we have demanded stuff from our staff, and our staff as we have right now is short-staffed, and we demand like we need this by the next meeting, and then just the approach. That was mainly the reason, and how we respond back to staff, and especially in front of in a public meeting.
All right. So we have a motion, we have a second. We can either entertain a substitute motion or call for the vote on the motion on the floor. Okay. So motion by Commissioner Garcia, seconded by Commissioner Quell. Call for the vote. Jennifer?
Chair Armstead? Vice Chair Quill? Commissioner Daly?
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores?
No.
Commissioner Carrascos? Commissioner Sherrick?
I too am going to abstain.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Before we tally the vote, Albert, do you want to explain how the abstention actually applies? Because if the abstention is because you don't want to make a commitment, so he's going to explain to you what it means to abstain from a vote.
Yes, your bylaws state, and I quote, "The abstention by any commissioner who is present for an item considered and has heard all presented evidence shall constitute an affirmative vote on any motion." So actually, for the two that abstained, your votes are going to be counted as yes. So if you don't want your motion to be counted as yes, then you need to speak now and say you vote no.
Okay, so so this is really this. I mean, obviously, I think this is a little bit awkward, and I'm not really. It just feels a little awkward. But as I understand it, the current chair is appointed by a council member who, I think at this point we know will not be being reelected. which leads me to think that within a matter of months, a new elected official will assume that role and will make a determination as to who they want their commissioner to be for the Planning Commission. I recognize that we're also not making a decision here to ask for the removal. It's just to replace. But I'm a government person and we move slow, and I think that the natural course of things is going to result in us having some new bodies, individuals on this board in a number of months. And so with that, I will just say no to replacing the chair.
Okay, Jennifer, could you read it?
Hold on. Commissioner Garcia, you also voted to abstain, right?
No.
Oh, Commissioner
Sherrick,
Sherrick, excuse me. So, do you want to provide clarification? Because otherwise your vote's going to be counted as yes.
I understand, and I'd like a copy of the bylaws. I think we should be given those when we become members of the commission. I personally think instead of just calling to remove someone, we as leaders need to talk to our commissioners if we feel that they are out of line. And has that taken place? Have you spoken with the commissioner? My vote stands. If you need clarification, my vote is
So your vote is to abstain, which will be counted as a yes. Is that your vote?
yes. That is my vote.
Okay.
Jennifer, could you read out the tally, please?
Counting Sherrick's abstention, it is 5 yeses, 4 nos. So
Okay.
vote passes.
Vote passes 5-4. So now we go to the second phase of nomination for a new chair to the Planning Commission.
Can I nominate already?
Yeah, if you nominate, we need a second, and anybody else can also nominate and get a second, et cetera, et cetera. So if you get a second, you vote. If there's no majority, then we go to the next
I
person.
nominate Lisa Sherrick.
Need a second.
I'll second.
Lisa, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any other motions?
I would like to nominate Larry Quell as our chair.
Okay. We need a second for that motion to be considered. Seconded by Quell. So now we have to.
Any others?
And Commissioner Quell, do you accept the nomination to be nominated as chair of the Planning Commission? As a vice, he's the current vice chair.
Okay, hearing no other motions, the rule is that the second motion is voted upon first. So we'll take a roll call vote on that. If there's not a majority vote for Vice Chair Quill to become the chair, then the commission will proceed to vote on the first motion made for Commissioner Sherrick to become chair. Does everyone understand the process? Any questions? Yes, sir.
What happens if they both receive a majority vote?
That wouldn't happen because the first motion to get a majority vote takes legal effect immediately. So the first one to be voted upon will be the second motion. If Vice Chair Quill gets a majority vote, he becomes chair immediately. Any other questions? Okay, so Jennifer, please call the roll on the motion for Vice Chair Quill first.
Commissioner Armstead? No. Vice Chair Quill? Yes. Commissioner Daly?
No.
Commissioner Lopez? Yes. Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores?
No.
Commissioner Carrascos? Commissioner Sherrick?
No.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
No.
Motion fails 6-3.
Jennifer, please proceed to call the vote for Lisa Sherrick for chair.
Okay. Commissioner Armstead? Yes. Vice Chair Quill? Commissioner Daly?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez? Commissioner Ivan Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores?
Yes.
Commissioner Croscos?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando Garcia?
Yes.
Vote passes.
Motion passes 7-2. Congratulations, Commissioner Chair Sherrick, as a Planning Commission Chair.
And as that takes effect immediately, Chair Sherrick, you are now tasked with finishing the rest of the agenda. And the next item is Planning Commission reports and announcements.
Do we have any reports by the commissioners?
I have an announcement. I just wanted to, retract my vote for item 2 and record that for the record. I voted yes. I wanted to vote no for the denial of, let me go up to item number 2. And I was in favor of this project. So
Right.
if I can
And-
just change my vote from yes to no.
And I think there was some confusion as to what the Planning Commission was voting for. When you voted yes, you were voting for the denial of the project. If you're not aware of that, when you're voting yes, it's not you voting for approval, you're voting on the item presented in front of you, which was a resolution to deny. So if you voted yes, apparently you voted in error because you wanted the project approved. If there are any other commissioners, I don't know how the process works since you
Yeah,
can
we're,
explain that.
we're in the same meeting, and so if someone voted by mistake how they didn't want to vote, what Commissioner Garcia did just now is sufficient so that Jennifer has the notes to properly record the vote. Commissioner Quill?
Yes.
Okay.
You voted yes on the
Okay.
denial. Yeah, you voted yes on the approval the first time around. Yes.
Okay.
So we got 2 votes being changed.
Any others? Jennifer, can you please report back to us how the vote stands now on that item?
I think it was unanimous the first time around,
so
so it's
too.
now
Do
7-2.
Well, actually, no, we had 2 that abstained because we did the consent calendar together. Flores and Crosco abstained. So now with the changes, it'll be,
Coyle and Garcia with Flores and Carrasco's making 4.
So it'll be 5-4.
yeah,
5 to
so
4.
5-4.
5-4. And for the commission's benefit, remember how I did this exercise about abstention be counted as yes? I'm not gonna hold the 2 abstentions as yes votes because I know the reason you 2 abstained is because you weren't here at the last meeting. So you didn't fully participate in the item. It's only when you have fully participated in the item and you still abstain, then it's counted as yes. Okay, so just to clarify that.
I know that Commissioner Carrasco's was absent, but who was the other abstaining vote?
Commissioner
Yes,
Flores.
Flores
He was
was
absent
absent
too.
as well. Good. Yeah, 2 absentee votes. Very good.
I just had 2 more announcements, sorry. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see the video of State of the City. Just wanted to mention that our city is now designated as a tree city, which I love trees, and I think they're really gonna help our environment, which is a big issue, although AQMD representative said it doesn't help the environment, but
Yeah.
I thought that was a personal opinion, if you ask me. And then I also want to say kudos to the staff. Really appreciate you guys on some of these projects that are being submitted to the city, where we're showing setbacks. I saw some tables in there as I was reading today's agenda as the packet. And thank you for, really taking our comments when we do raise or provide suggestions to staff. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Go ahead, Casey. Thank you, Commissioner. I also want to know that I privately applauded staff for their presentations on their their items, but I'd like to do that publicly also. I think that they did a really good job tonight presenting their items. I particularly liked that no acronyms were used. And I think that that's helpful for all of us, as well as the individuals in the audience and at home. Commissioner Daly.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if going forward, when staff sends the agendas to us, if we could get the full packet, because it's challenging to read 400 pages for the first time right here, and while we're listening to the presentation, I feel like the documents that I get are just like the cover agenda, so I'm not able to.
Just to clarify, so in the email, in the body of the email, there is a link that takes you to the PrimeGov website, which has the packet. But if it's easier to upload both, I will upload both in the email.
Okay. Well, I understand that those can be super big documents, and I understand that. Thank you.
Following up on that item, is there a way to get the PowerPoint presentations added to the staff reports?
Madam Chair, I can refer to you as Madam Chair now officially. Congratulations. Yes, we can. That's how it works with city council items anyway, so we get the PowerPoint. Unless the PowerPoint is being presented by a third party.
Yes.
Sometimes they bring in information late. The AQMD guy, for example, showed up with with a memory stick on the same day of the meeting. But anything that's coming from staff, I think we want to make it a point to have the PowerPoint presentation as part of the Planning Commission package.
Director Elliott, I just have a comment.
Yes,
there are times where the PowerPoints do come down to the last day of us trying to compile. Would it be acceptable for the commission if we at least had PowerPoint copies on the laptops for you, and then they could be distributed via email after the fact? Because I don't know that they'll always be available and ready before we have to legally post the documentation online and post at the library.
Can I jump to staff's defense here? As the person who has a meeting next Tuesday that I've already been asked to send the presentation for, and myself and my team are preparing the slide decks, I would say that it's a bit of an ask to ask staff to submit a complete slide deck along with the present a week ahead of time, or how far along you have to do it. So I would just give staff some grace here, and say that maybe if you can load it up on here, that'd be great. But I know slides are being worked on sometimes until right about now.
That's fair to have them on our computer. It's just difficult to look at it this way, and then it's, there's this one's being blocked, that one's kind of far. Thank you.
We'll provide you, if we're going to have PowerPoint presentations, we can provide you with some advanced copies of just general the framework of the slides themselves, and on the day of the presentation it will be more thorough. But if we can do it for city council items, I don't see why we can't do it for planning commission items. I know it's hard. I've been where Commissioner Daly is many times, but if you establish those guidelines, that's something we have to do as well.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or reports by commissioners? Director's report.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for all the planning commissioners for your assistance. Thank you very much for Chair Armstead for all your efforts and all the time you've put onto the planning commission. You've been on the commission for over 3 years, I understand. For about 3 years, we appreciate your time spent. And Commissioner Carrasco, you're the newest planning commissioner. We're looking forward to working with you. If you need any assistance, if you have any questions, et cetera, please let us know. We are here to help you. I don't know how many of you are aware of of the incident at the Harris Building. That's what we've been kind of doing for the for the entire week. You know, we came in and lo and behold, the building was on fire, and it's really taking a lot of resources at this particular time. For what has been made public, you know, the fire was contained on the 4th floor of the building. It's done some damage to that section of the building. We haven't been able to get into the building, but we'll be able to get in tomorrow morning to do some additional assessments and see any kind of structural damage and smoke damage, et cetera, et cetera. But I know social media has really crucified the city for taking ownership of the Harris Building, and under our tutelage, the building caught fire. Well, the fact of the matter is we haven't taken ownership of the building yet. Technically, it doesn't belong to the city yet. The negotiations are still ongoing, and we don't have ownership until sometime in the very near future. What happened in the building is a culmination of just the building getting taken over by by other individuals. There's an encampment outside. There's a lot of break-ins into that building. No respect for property ownership, and that's kind of it's reminiscent of what is happening in the downtown area. And the only way that's going to change is by infusing development into this. If all our vacant buildings start getting occupied by people and there's a lot more nightlife, I think there'll be confidence in businesses to want to open in the downtown area, so that those of you who reside here would have a place to go in the evening with your your spouses and your children, and be able to have a normal life that we've been used to for a very long time. So I just wanted to mention that. Besides that, based on our conversation this evening, we'll be bringing something back to you in the future that shows how other agencies are addressing the warehouse issues, and then we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
A quick question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are we on a downtown revitalization plan? I mean, we want to do something with downtown.
The downtown specific plan is tied into, the zoning code update. It's tied into the specific plan update. It's tied into the general plan update, because there's one firm that is actually handling all those items. I can have Travis Martin, our principal planner, give you an update on where we are. We are meeting regularly with PlaceWorks, and Travis.
So first, I want to separate two distinct projects. One is the downtown specific plan. I can speak to that. The other is the actual redevelopment of the property across the street from us here. They are tied together. One would help guide the other, but they are separate projects, because we are working to adopt a specific plan, but the city is not the developer of that property. We are not the developer of any property. As far as the specific plan itself, we do have a draft of it. It is substantially complete, but it does fall just shy of a public review draft. We have had that since, I want to say, about this time last year, when we were looking to move forward on that, because that was something that we had made very clear we were looking to take in advance of the general plan. We ran into a technical issue because of our housing element. Try to explain it as simply as I can. The housing element and the RHNA that we talked about endlessly. Sorry for the acronym. I know. I think we all know what that one is, though. The RHNA that we had to satisfy and the way we were doing that depended on properties that were some located in the downtown area or within the broader area that the downtown plan would encompass. And what we were preparing and what HCD was reviewing was specifically referencing the designations as they sit today, because that's what we had to work off of. The downtown plan would then be going in and rezoning some of that. Most of it, to be honest, was to upzone, but it would be changing those numbers. When we looked at it, we consulted, with our staff, with our consultant, and we said, okay, we can't be moving forward to change the zoning on something that HCD is in the middle of reviewing that is contingent on the existing zoning. It would be two kind of competing actions happening at the same time. It was unfortunate because yes, we had to put that item to a halt for a period, but we would have run into some question with HCD that we wouldn't have just been able to handle. And it was critical that we got that housing element adopted because of the litigation that we were under. So we had to make the tough choice and say, okay, let's set that there. We're going to come back to it. Everything that's in there is still in there. We're working on finishing everything else, but we had to stop. At this point now, a year on from that, we are so close with everything that we then made a separate decision that instead of taking the downtown plan on its own and having to do its own environmental impact report and expend the time and the costs associated with that, we've now looked to bundle it with the general plan, as I mentioned earlier, with kind of putting all the projects together, because then we can do one consolidated EIR that will cover everything. Saves staff time, saves consultant time, and saves us some money. So it's there, it is still coming, but as with the items I mentioned earlier, like the truck route, it's going to be one hell of a meeting when we bring everything forward. I'll just say it that way. As far as the actual redevelopment of that property and any groups that we were working with, that's really a separate matter. I can't speak to that. I don't know if we have more of an update there.
Madam Chair, and members of the Planning Commission, we don't have any updates on the development of the Carousel Mall. But as far as the downtown specific plan is concerned, I think Mr. Martinez provided us with some information. I just wanted to ask, before I close my comments, when you all were elected as planning commissioners by the show of hands, how many of you received a binder that had the bylaws and any of the other rules and regulations of the Planning Commission, et cetera, et cetera? Anybody get anything like that? So Commissioner Flores did. And anybody else? So you don't have the bylaws of the Planning Commission and how meetings are conducted, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. We will have you a binder at your next meeting. And as a show of gratitude to Commissioner Armstead, we're also going to present you with a plaque for your time served as a planning commissioner and as a chair of the Planning Commission. We don't have a gavel, unfortunately, but I think Commissioner Sherrick, Chairperson Sherrick, would you like to have a gavel so that you can kind of call the meeting to order and everybody kind of sit up?
Maybe a crown.
Okay, yeah, okay.
No, a gavel is not
a
necessary.
gavel would be nice.
No.
So we'll get a gavel. And Commissioner Quill, my apologies. We didn't have your laptop today because it malfunctioned, for of all the days, and we couldn't get it to just work. But we hope to clear that by your next meeting. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
No further comments. I suggest we adjourn. Thank you. Motion.